Chapter 4568. All right. Zhen Han smiled and said, "Aren't we fellow disciples? I'm just joking with you, don't take it to heart." Hee, senior brother. Longma Zhenfeng chuckled and asked, "I'm just joking. Think about it, Zhen Kong wasn't originally in the sutras seeking extreme bliss. He was the monk's disciple. This disciple received a lot of merit, and the two of us talked about it before. But now, we still don't know where this fire ape came from. Do you think it's possible that some great sage of the thousand beast sacred realm couldn't stand this fire ape and sent all the beast clans to kick him out of the sutra seeking extreme bliss?" "Of course," Zhen Han replied without hesitation. "This is the most likely scenario." Moreover, Zhen Han glanced at Longma Zhenfeng and said meaningfully, "Junior brother, don't you think that the appearance of this fake Shen Kong has a lot to do with the East Sea Dragon Palace's peace?" Hiss. Longma Zhenfeng couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air and said in shock, "Senior brother, you mean? Since you've already guessed this possibility, why do you need me to say more?" Zhen Han smiled and didn't say anything. "Don't, senior brother." Longma Zhenfeng thought of another possibility and couldn't help but feel bad. He quickly smiled and said, "I'm just a bystander, so why don't you say it?" Zhen Han rolled his eyes and said ambiguously, "It's your beast clan's matter, why do you need me to say it? Although I don't know what happened in the East Sea Dragon Palace, you should be glad that there are two Zhen Kongs and not two Zhen Fengs." "AI, that's right, I didn't think about it at first, but now that senior brother said it, I know." Zhen Feng seemed to have some lingering fear in his heart as he replied, "It's possible that the great sage of the Great Sage Hall went back on his word. Something happened between the Great Sage Hall and the East Sea Dragon Palace. Fortunately, the East Sea Dragon Palace didn't abandon me, the 10th prince." "That's right." Zhen Han smiled and said, "You're still the 10th prince of the East Sea Dragon Palace, unlike this fire ape who doesn't have any background." At this point, Zhen Han's heart skipped a beat, and he hurriedly transmitted his voice. "That's not right. Zhenfeng, do you still remember the snowy mountain?" "Nonsense, who doesn't remember the Great Snow Mountain? Namo Maitreya Buddha achieved enlightenment and Zhenjie became our senior brother." Speaking of the Great Snow Mountain, Dragon Horse Zhenfeng immediately thought of its own bloody history and became somewhat angry. "Do you think that Taoist Xiao is Zhen Kong's backer?" Zhen Han reminded. "I remember that Taoist Xiao treated Zhen Kong quite well back then. Are you kidding me? He's Zhenjie's backer." Dragon Horse Zhenfeng said disapprovingly, "That day, that human didn't say anything to Zhen Kong, and he even cursed at him a lot. The funniest thing is that the fire ape didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth and wanted to ask that human for a magic treasure. Wasn't it rejected by the human?" "That's true." Zhen Han nodded and said, "If Taoist Xiao has a backer, it's not a big deal to give him a magic treasure. Moreover, Taoist Master Xiao rejected him very tactfully. With one look, I can tell that he is not on the same side as Zhen Kong." "You humans are really laughable." Dragon Horse Zhenfeng mocked. "A rejection is a rejection. Why did you say, when you are done with the sutra seeking extreme bliss, come and ask me for it and I will keep it for you? That's too fake." "Hee, why else would I be a human? There are a lot of ways of the world that you monsters don't understand." Zhen Han replied with a mischievous smile. "I am a dragon, the 10th prince of the East Sea Dragon Palace, not a monster." Dragon Horse Zhenfeng corrected again. These words, he had probably said it more than 2,000 times in the 200 years he had spent in the sutra seeking extreme bliss. Zhen Han didn't mind. He raised his head and looked at the two Zhen Kongs in the distant night sky and said with a smile, "In my opinion, this fake Zhen Kong was sent by the Great Sage Palace to kill Zhen Kong and seize his merits." "That's not right." Dragon Horse Zhenfeng was about to nod, but he suddenly thought of something and said in confusion, "If this is the work of the Great Sage Palace, why didn't they lure Zhen Kong to a secret place and kill him before letting the fake Zhen Kong come back?" "That's right, that's true." Zhen Han also didn't understand, but then he asked curiously, "If that's not the case, then how do you explain those three monsters with 8th grade essence energy? Weren't they sent by the Great Sage Palace to lure the tiger away from the mountain?" "It's getting more and more complicated." Dragon Horse Zhenfeng kicked his front hooves and said, "If it isn't the Great Sage Palace, then could it be the Immortal Palace?" How could it be the Immortal Palace? Zhenhan didn't understand what Dragon Horse Zhenfeng was thinking. Look, nothing happened at the Sutra world, but when we arrived at the hidden Immortal continent, before we even set foot on the ground, the three monster kings came. Dragon Horse Zhenfeng said with a smile, then eldest senior brother disappeared. The control insect came and the real Zhen Kong was discovered. And the merit officer who should have appeared has yet to appear. Do you think the Immortal Palace did this on purpose? Hee hee. Zhenhan smiled and said, even if my Immortal Palace wanted to do something, we would definitely not use a monster as an excuse. Not to mention, using such despicable methods. There are 3 reasons why there are no merit officers of the Immortal Palace. Oh, there are actually 3 reasons? Third senior brother, let's hear it. Dragon Horse Zhenfeng said with interest. First of all, this sutra seeking in Sutra world is a Buddhist sutra. It has nothing to do with my Immortal Palace and Confucian cultivators. Why would the merit officers of my Immortal Palace care about it? Tell me, then what? Then, since eldest senior brother came from the Great Snow Mountain, those so-called tribulations are no longer tribulations. The sutra seeking in Sutra world has been smooth sailing. Even the Thunder Temple's protector has slacked off, not to mention the merit officers of my Immortal Palace. What else? It's possible that the merit officers of the Thunder Temple are negotiating with the Thunder Temple's protector. Zhenhan smiled and pointed to the sky. Maybe they don't like each other and are killing each other. Hee hee. Dragon Horse Zhenfeng also smiled and said the same thing as Zhenhan. The 3 reasons that third senior apprentice brother mentioned sound reasonable. Moreover, the Immortal Palace will also have misgivings about their face and won't use such despicable methods. However, don't forget that on the hidden Immortal continent, there are still the 4 great clans and the 100 clans. If this is the case, third senior brother, you are just lucky. Zhenhan's sweat dripped down from his forehead. His situation was very similar to Dragon Horse Zhenfeng's. It was just that his status was a bit more official than Dragon Horse Zhenfeng's. If the 4 great clans really went back on their words and wanted to take advantage of the situation, he might really become a sacrifice. However, since there are 2 Zhen Kongs, Zhenfeng and Zhenhan looked at each other again, and a knowing smile appeared on their faces. They whispered to each other through telepathy, then the danger we're in is gone. However, a moment later, Zhenhan whispered, from the looks of it, we have temporarily avoided the danger. However, we still have to be careful. Before the truth comes to light, anything is possible. Everyone sweeps the snow in front of their own door. Don't worry about the frost on the roof of others. Draconic Horse Zhenfeng was naturally very interested in this matter and whispered, who cares who is the real Zhen Kong and who is the fake Zhen Kong? Protecting ourselves is the right thing to do. Chun Zong pulled Tua Chao and walked at the front. Although he was not much faster than Dragon Horse Zhenfeng and Zhenhan, he still couldn't hear the words of his 2 disciples. He also didn't understand the thoughts of his 2 disciples. He also didn't know that although he had obtained the sutra that could illuminate the hidden Immortal continent, could the people who schemed and plotted against each other really let the Mahayana Sutra illuminate the hearts of the people? The night was extremely dark. There were no stars in the sky. Behind them, a gale gradually formed on the sea and a whistling sound gradually sounded. However, this whistling sound couldn't cover up the crackling sound of fighting above Chun Zhang's head. Occasionally, there would be a loud sound in the distance. It was unknown which Zhen Kong was knocked to the ground. Then, there would be the sound of hills being smashed and trees being pushed down. Tua Chao barely managed to walk for an hour. Then, Chun Zong carried Tua Chao and walked for another hour. Chun Zong couldn't hold on anymore. His body was sweating profusely. He stood on the dark road and looked around. There was an indescribable feeling in his heart. However, a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. This smile was really meaningful. Even Mahavairakana probably couldn't understand the meaning behind it. Zhenhan. Chun Zong turned his head and looked at Tua Chao who was sleeping on his shoulder. He said, Go find a place to rest. Yes, master. Zhen Han responded. She looked up at the fighting in the night sky and flew up slightly. Her eyes flashed with a clear light. She pointed with her finger and said, Master, there is a shabby cottage over there. No one lives there. Why don't we go there? But Chunzong nodded and was about to walk in that direction. Zhen Han looked at Chunzong and said in a low voice, Master, give Tuo Chao to Disciple. Disciple will bring her there and tidy up the cottage. Amitba. Go and tidy up. Tuo Chao is sleeping soundly. Don't wake him up. Chunzong panted and replied. Zhen Han smiled and said, Master, you underestimate Disciple. How can Disciple wake Tuo Chao? Then, Zhen Han raised her hand and Tuo Chao gently floated up. Chunzong smiled and let Zhen Han fly away with Tuo Chao. He didn't know when the fighting in the sky ended. Chunzong only knew that when he woke up from his meditative state, the entire thatched hut was rattling. The salty sea breeze was blowing outside, and heavy rain was pouring down. The entire thatched hut seemed to be about to be overturned by the storm. The storm had finally come. Chapter 45-69. Amidst the wind and rain, Emo Chao curled up her small body and laid beside Chunzong. Even the wind and rain couldn't wake her up from her dream of having parents. Looking at the smile on Emo Chao's face, Chunzong sighed and stood up. As soon as Chunzong moved, the originally closed wooden door opened with a loud bang. A gust of wind mixed with the cold rain rushed into the thatched cottage. Chunzong hurriedly stood to the side and blocked the rain that landed on Emo Chao's body. However, a gust of cold wind still woke Chong Chao up. She rubbed her eyes and was about to act coquettishly when the smile on her face disappeared. Returning to reality, she hurriedly stood up carefully and stood beside Chunzong like a maidservant. Master! Outside the cottage, the two Zhenkongs each held a magic wand and stared at each other. They spoke in unison, Tell me which one of us is the real one and which one is the fake one. The real one stays, the fake one, scram. Although the torrential rain outside the cottage was heavy, layers of demonic aura were generated in the space a few feet around the two Zhenkongs. The demonic aura was scorching hot like flames, preventing the torrential rain from landing on the two Zhenkongs. However, the two Zhenkongs were covered in mud and even had some bloodstains. It was obvious that they were injured during the fight. Chunzong looked at them and felt his heart ache. After listening to the two Zhenkongs, he understood that the two Zhenkongs were exactly the same. Neither of them could defeat the other. That was why they came to such a compromise. Unfortunately, Chunzong looked at them again and again. After the time it took to finish a meal, he spoke. Disciple, I really can't tell. Who is the real Zhenkong? You need the heavenly eye of Buddhism to be able to tell, right? Can't both of you fly? If you can, go to Lei Temple. Mahavairakana should be able to tell the difference. To Chunzong's surprise, the two Zhenkongs spoke at the same time. You think I've been protecting you all this time? Now that I need your help, you can't even tell who is the real one and who is the fake one. Chunzong was not surprised by Zhenkong's lack of respect. What he found strange was that the two Zhenkongs actually spoke the same word. He said helplessly, Oh Zhenkong, you've seen it for yourself. It's not that I don't want to help you. Whatever you want to say, that fake knows in advance. Even the way you speak is the same. How can I tell the difference? If that's the case. The two Zhenkongs said at the same time, Let's go find the Vairocana revered one. Monk, be careful along the way. Go, Master will wait for you here. Chun King nodded and replied. Hee, monk, do you think Lei Temple is a small fishing village? The two Zhenkongs mocked. It'll take months or even years for us to make a round trip. You'd better go on your own. I see. Chunzong was stunned. If that's the case, why don't you wait until Zhenjie comes back? The two Zhenkongs sneered. If only he could see through it. Then, Chunzong hesitated and asked, This is already the hidden Immortal continent. Can the Immortal Palace help? That's right, that's right. Hearing this, the two Zhenkongs were overjoyed and shouted, Damn Zhenhan, why aren't you hurrying to find the Merit Chow on duty? Second senior brother. Zhenhan smiled bitterly. With such strong winds and heavy rain, where do you want me to find? Without waiting for him to finish, the two Jinkongs raised their wands and said, "Damn it, if you dare to say another word, I'll beat you to death." Seeing that the two Jinkongs were angered, Zhenhan did not dare to stay out of it. He hurriedly waved his hand and said, "Second senior brother, don't be anxious. I'll go and find the Merit Chow on duty now. Hurry back." The patience of the two Jinkongs had long been worn out. He waved his wand and said, "Be careful of my wand." "Yes, yes." Zhenhan hurriedly nodded his head and hurriedly left on his cloud. Damn it! The eyes of the two Jinkongs turned blood red, and there were flames within the blood-red eyes. "Both of you are useless. You can't even see through a demon. Fight!" As he said that, the two Jinkongs started fighting again. Seeing the two fire apes fighting in the air again, Chunzong carefully closed the door. However, before he could turn around, Xiao Chao's words gave him a fright. "Master?" Xiao Chao's voice was as soft as a mosquito. "I know who is the real one." "What?" Chunzong was shocked. Without hesitation, he stepped forward and covered Xiao Chao's mouth. He said in a low voice, "Do you want to die? Don't say it out loud. That fake one can beat you to death with a single blow." Xiao Chao nodded her head sensibly and pursed her lips. At this moment, one of the two Jinkongs who were fighting suddenly glanced at the thatched cottage below him, and a ferocious glint appeared in his eyes. That figure actually had the intention to descend. However, the other Jinkongs was fighting excitedly. He was entangling this Jinkongs tightly. This fake Jinkongs also managed to extricate himself in a short period of time. After a while, the two of them flew high into the dark clouds. The sounds of fighting gradually disappeared. Hearing that there was no movement outside, Chunzong lowered his voice and said, "Xiao Chao, wait for a while. Wait for my eldest disciple to return." Xiao Chao nodded her head again. Chunzong looked at the wind and rain outside the cottage and asked in bewilderment, "Xiao Chao, how can you tell?" Xiao Chao looked at Chunzong and hesitated for a while. She said in a low voice, "Because he is really my enemy. I must remember him. I want to avenge my parents." Amitba. Chunzang's heart was filled with mixed feelings. He said, "Xiao Chao, how about this poor monk recite a scripture for you?" "Sure, master." Xiao Chao nodded. Avalokitesvara Bodhisattva, when he walked the deep Prajna Paramitha for a long time, he saw that the 5 skandhas were all emptiness. He transcended all suffering. Chunzong placed his palms together and recited softly. Xiao Chao's face was filled with confusion. She did not know what Chunzong was reciting, but she listened obediently. Boom! At this time, a loud sound came from outside the cottage. It was unknown whether it was the wind and rain or the aftermath of the battle, but the roof of the cottage was suddenly lifted and the wind and rain poured in. Chunzong immediately understood what happened. He did not hesitate and pulled Xiao Chao into his arms. There was no fear on his face. He raised his head and looked at the wind and rain while chanting the Heart Sutra of Prajna Paramitha. Clap, clap, clap. The sound of the magic wands hitting each other was endless. Soon after, the sound gradually faded away. However, Chunzong was not at ease. He still protected Xiao Chao in front of his chest, blocking the wind and rain and danger. "Damn it!" Longma Zhenfeng's voice came from outside the cottage. "I wanted to be idle for a while, but you had to drag me out. I am the 10th prince of the Eastern Sea Dragon Palace. Now, I have become a craftsman repairing a cottage?" Following Longma Zhenfeng's voice, the roof that was previously lifted returned and blocked the wind and rain. "Master, are you all right?" Dragon Horse Zhenfeng was very thorough in evading. He didn't even want to meet Jinkong face to face. After asking this question, before Chunzong could reply, he had already disappeared. Chunzang's body was already soaked, but he did not dare to be careless. He did not dare to move his body and continued to protect Xiao Chao while chanting the sutra. 2 hours later, the rain gradually lessened and the wind weakened. In the distant sky, Zhenhan flew over with 2 earthen lords. Damn it! The two Jinkong's eyes flashed with golden light at the same time as they cursed, "Useless things, why did you find two earthen lords?" However, the two Jinkongs stopped at the same time. One of them glanced at the cottage that was gradually getting further away and seemed to be calculating something in his heart. "Second senior brother," Zhenhan shouted, "this little brother has found the land of the Immortal Palace. Useless things, can they tell who is fake?" The two Jinkongs did not hesitate to curse. "Second senior brother, you don't know." Zhenhan smiled, "I also have no way to find the earthen lords on duty. The only one I can find is the earthen lords. However, I heard from these two earthen lords that they met the earthen lords on duty yesterday. They should be dealing with the Buddhist sect's guardian heavenly kings and venerables. They will be back soon." "How long?" one Jinkong said impatiently while the other Jinkong looked at the cottage. Seeing that the fake Jinkong did not say anything, the real Jinkong suddenly turned his head and looked at the fake Jinkong. The fake Jinkong laughed coldly. "What are you looking at? You fake, when the earthen lords on duty come, you will be exposed." "Ha!" The real Jinkong used his hand to hit his chest and shouted, "What a joke, what a joke! Between the two of us, who is the one who is afraid? Could it be that you are thinking of escaping?" "Ha!" The fake Jinkong used his hand to hit his chest and said, "How can I be afraid?" "Masters," the two earthen lords said with a smile, "we have already sent a message to the earthen lords on duty. I believe that they will be back soon." Good. We will wait here." The two Jinkong spoke at the same time. Hearing this, the two earthen lords felt their hair stand on end. This was because the two fire apes were saying the same words and doing the same actions at the same time. It was truly strange. This wait lasted for a whole hour. The two Jinkong scratched their ears and cheeks anxiously. This was especially so for one of them. His eyes would occasionally flash with an ominous glint as if he was looking at the two earthen lords. However, in reality, he was looking at the ground. Needless to say, this was definitely the fake Jinkong. He had already heard the words of the earthen lords and wanted to get rid of the earthen lords. If there was only the real Jinkong, he would not hesitate to rush down and kill the earthen lords. In fact, he had already tried flying down earlier. However, the real Jinkong was watching him closely. As long as he moved, the real Jinkong would fight him. Moreover, the earthen lords were being protected by Chuanzong. The fake Jinkong would not be able to kill the earthen lords in a short period of time. Furthermore, the two earthen lords said that the earthen lords on duty were about to arrive. The fake Jinkong was unable to grasp who the earthen lords were, what their cultivation level was, and when they would arrive. He was afraid that the moment he landed, the reward would arrive and mess up all the arrangements he had painstakingly made. Therefore, he hesitated again and again. It was during this little bit of hesitation that an hour passed. Looking at the storm and the sky revealing the light, the fake Jinkong almost didn't dare to believe it. Chapter 45-70. Damn it! The fake Jinkong cursed angrily. He finally made up his mind to attack regardless of the consequences. Unfortunately, as soon as he moved, the real Jinkong, as he expected, thought that he was going to attack. He also cursed and rushed over with his magic wand. "Roar, do you think I am afraid of you?" The fake Jinkong roared furiously. His magic wands rained down like rain, and his body rapidly plummeted to the ground. Swoosh! Right at this moment, for dignified gazes swept over. The moment they landed on the two Jinkongs, they couldn't help but be stunned. Immediately after, for voices came from afar in unison. "This? What is going on? Why are there two Jinkongs?" Along with the voice, boom boom. Righteous chi rushed down from the sky like a torrent, enveloping the space around the two Jinkongs. Within this righteous chi, two Confucian generals in battle armor and two Confucian cultivators in official robes flew over on auspicious clouds. Before they could land, Zhenhan smelled a trace of mellow wine fragrance from the righteous chi. Damn it! Zhenhan cursed in a low voice and looked at the two Earth Lords. The two Earth Lords seemed to have smelled something and their faces looked awkward. They looked at each other and hurriedly moved forward to greet the four Earth Lords. This lowly one greets the 4 merit officers. Damned Earth Lords! The one in front was a Confucian cultivator wearing a red official robe. He had a fat head and big ears. His stomach was slightly protruding and the wings on his official hat were slightly swaying. Under the hat, he had a red face and a pair of eyes that were even more protruding than his stomach. This Confucian cultivator was holding an object that looked like an imperial tablet. When he saw the 2 Earth Lords bowing, he scolded, "The sutra-seeking state of bliss has just arrived at my hidden immortal continent and there is such a huge anomaly. Why didn't the 2 of you report it? How should the 2 of you be punished?" The 2 Earth Lords panicked and hurriedly reported, "For merit officers, this lowly one didn't know that the sutra-seeking state of bliss had passed by this lowly one. Furthermore, the sutra-seeking state of bliss is not within this lowly one's responsibility." What? The merit officer was angry and scolded, "The sutra-seeking state of bliss is a huge matter of my immortal palace and thunder monastery. How can it not be within your responsibility? Aren't you neglecting your duties by saying such things?" The other landlord was even more straightforward. "This lowly one has already sent the information about this place to Sir Merit Officer 2 hours ago." The merit officer was startled. He turned his head to look at the other Confucian general who was wearing battle armor and holding a hatchet in his hand. He asked curiously, "Merit officer on duty, is there such a thing?" The merit officer's face was also slightly red, but his expression didn't change. He faintly replied, "Lord Merit Officer, I have received some messages, but I don't know which one is from the local land. After all, we have to deal with the Buddhist sect's guardian heavenly kings. There are too many things and it's difficult to deal with them one by one." As he spoke, the merit officer on duty took out a few small booklets that looked like memorials. He casually flipped through them a few times and took out one of them. He opened it and nodded. "Indeed, it has been issued. Since that's the case, you are all innocent." The merit officer came to a conclusion. He looked at the ground and said proudly, "Thank you, my lord." The 2 landlords finally heaved a sigh of relief. Then they immediately asked, "My lord, we still have duties to do. Do you think we can leave first?" "Leave?" The merit officer on duty glanced at the 2 Jiangkongs who were still fighting fiercely. He faintly said, "Is there anything more important in the hidden immortal continent than sutra seeking in nirvana?" The 2 landlords didn't know how to answer. Zhen Han hurriedly said, "Lord Merit Officer on duty is right. Sutra seeking in nirvana came from nirvana to the hidden immortal continent. Previously, everything was in order in nirvana, but when it came to our hidden immortal continent, there was a problem. If our immortal palace didn't handle it properly, it would damage the face of us Confucian cultivators." That's right. The other old man wearing an official's robe praised. "The 2 of you also wait here for orders." "Yes, Lord Merit Officer on duty." The 2 disciples knew that this was Lord Merit Officer of the 4 Seasons action to share the responsibility, but they couldn't do anything about it. They could only respond and respectfully stand at the side. The merit officer on duty snorted coldly. He waved his hand and a dozen inscription chains as thin as a thumb appeared. They circled around in the nearby space. He said, "Where did this evildoer come from? He actually dares to disturb the order of our immortal palace's sutra seeking in nirvana? Hurry up and capture him." When the 2 Jiangkongs who were fighting fiercely saw this, joy appeared on their faces. At the same time, they put away their magic wands and flew up to the clouds. They shouted, "Old Merit Officer, you guys are finally here. Hurry up and let us see which one is real and which one is fake." "Damn it." The merit officer on duty cursed in a low voice. He raised his head and looked at the sky, which was filled with mottled clouds. It was as if he disdained to speak with the 2 Jiangkongs. The merit officer on duty didn't speak. The merit officer on duty shouted, "Where did this evildoer come from? He actually dares to disturb the order of our immortal palace's sutra seeking in nirvana. If you kneel down and beg for mercy now, we can still let you go. We might not necessarily capture you and bring you to the Immortal Palace. When we find you, you can blame us for being ruthless and killing you on the spot. Hurry, hurry! The two Jinkongs shouted at the same time. Hurry up and use your divine abilities to find that damned evildoer. Jinkong. The merit officer on duty didn't use his divine abilities. Instead, he said coldly, I have already heard from the guardian heavenly king that ever since you participated in the sutra seeking in nirvana, you have protected Chuanzong's safety. However, along the way, you have killed many Yao and Taoist cultivators. Is it because you have killed too many Yao that he changed his appearance to harm you? Think about it yourself. Which powerful Yao have you offended? Old merit officer. The two Jinkongs immediately became angry. However, they still restrained themselves and said, Are you here to capture the evildoer? Or are you here to judge my merits and demerits? The number of Yao and Taoist cultivators I have killed has nothing to do with you. You have no right to judge my merits and demerits. How dare you? The merit officer on duty roared. You are merely a Yao. You are already extremely lucky to have the qualifications to participate in the sutra seeking in nirvana. You actually dare to say such insolent words? Scram! The two Jinkongs were furious. Don't try to act sanctimonious in front of me. If you have the ability, then find the fake Jinkongs. If you don't, then hurry up and scram. When we kill our way into the Immortal Palace, we will let the Immortal Emperor punish your criminals. With that, the two Jinkongs moved and were about to fly towards the depths of the hidden Immortal Continent. Wait. The merit officer on duty naturally wouldn't let the two Jinkongs leave. He retracted his gaze and glanced at them arrogantly. Vile spawn, since you are not willing to grab this last chance, then don't blame me for being impolite. As he spoke, the merit officer slapped his forehead. His eyes flashed with a silver light, and a cold light shone down, covering the two Chens. However, a moment later, the merit officer's face was filled with surprise. He said, Sirs, let's use the 4 seasons all-seeing technique at the same time. It can't be. The merit officer on duty was astonished. However, when he saw the merit officer on duty's expression, he immediately shut his mouth. A bronze color appeared in his eyes. As for the merit officer on duty and the merit officer on duty who had been silent all this time, a clear light appeared in their eyes and landed on the two Jinkongs at the same time. Not to mention the 4 merit officers, even Jinhan could clearly see that under the 4 seasons detection technique, the color of the entire space seemed to have faded. Layers upon layers of light were extinguished and only black and white colors were left. Unfortunately, within the inscription chains, there were 2 identical Jinkongs. Although their hair and clothes were gone, the 2 fire apes with flickering flames around their bodies were still the same. Cough, cough. A moment later, the merit officer on duty coughed and the clear light disappeared. He then said, Jinkong, your situation is rather special. The 4 of us still need to study it? Bullshit. The 2 Jinkongs roared, I've seen many people who don't do a single thing. However, this is the first time I've seen someone as shameless as you. If you have the ability to distinguish the 2 Jinkongs, that's fine. However, since you're so useless, what qualifications do you have to humiliate me? As he spoke, the 2 Jinkongs raised their wands at the merit officer on duty. The merit officer on duty clearly didn't expect the 2 Jinkongs to suddenly attack. The wands swept through the sky and instantly shattered the inscription chains. Caught off guard, the wands landed right in front of the merit officer on duty. Damn it! The merit officer on duty was alarmed. He waved his hand and countless pillars of boundless chi surged out like ocean waves in an attempt to block the 2 wands. Boom! In the blink of an eye, the 2 wands hit the merit officer on duty. With a loud explosion, the merit officer on duty shattered the merit officer on duty. Even his fingers were dripping with blood. Rebel, rebel. The merit officer on duty shouted, You guys really don't want to live anymore. As he spoke, the merit officer on duty pointed at the merit officer on duty and said, Why aren't you guys killing these 2 evildoers? Sir. The merit officer on duty and the merit officer on duty looked at each other and replied, We were ordered by the Immortal Emperor to protect the master and disciple of the sutra seeking extreme bliss. Now that the two Jinkongs can't distinguish the real from the fake, we can't do anything. Woo! The two Jinkongs' wands once again fell from the sky and attacked the merit officer on duty's forehead. The merit officer on duty was alarmed and hurriedly flew up. As he flew, he shouted, "Quick, quick, send a message to Tai Bai Jinxing. He probably hasn't gone far yet." The Immortal Emperor's decree is in the hands of the merit officer on duty. The merit officer on duty calmly replied, "We don't have a message from Tai Bai Jinxing." Chapter 4571. Sir. The merit officer on duty did his best to dodge the two magic wands and shouted, "Whoosh!" Before the merit officer on duty could finish his words, the merit officer on duty waved his hand and a golden meteor shot into the sky, disappearing in an instant. Seeing that the message had been sent, the merit Chow opened his mouth and several clouds appeared, blocking the magic wand as he shouted, "When Lord Tai Bai Jinxing arrives, see if I won't teach you a lesson." Whoosh! With a clear sound, the clouds were swept away and two Jinkongs appeared in front of the merit officer on duty. The merit officer on duty was so frightened that he hurriedly retreated. Seeing that the merit officer on duty was retreating, the two Jinkongs stopped. They lazily put away their magic wands and scratched the fur on their body, coldly saying, "The immortal officials of the Immortal Palace are only as No wonder they couldn't send out any capable subordinates. Previously, I didn't understand why Jinhan was so lazy and tried to shirk his responsibility. Now that I look at you all, going too far is as bad as not going far enough. If you all also participated in the sutra seeking extreme bliss, I would have already beaten your butts." When Jinhan heard this, his face turned ashen. Right now, he didn't want to help Jinkong find the fake Jinkong. Instead, he wanted to beat the real Jinkong to death. "Alright, since Tai Bai Jinxing of the Immortal Palace is here, then I will wait here. Then I'll wait here and see what kind of ability that old man has." The two Jinkongs were also tired of fighting. They muttered as they stood in the air. However, the two of them revealed an ominous glint in their eyes as they stared at each other, as if they would attack if the other party wasn't careful. At this moment, the fake Jinkong no longer looked at the thatched cottage. His hesitation had already caused him to throw away his best chance. The arrival of the merit officer of the Four Seasons had completely ruined his plan. Now, he could only act according to the situation. Boom! In just a short moment, a rumbling sound could be heard in the distant sky. The vast energy pillar within several hundred li of the space was like a surging tide. Layers of whirlpools mixed with fragments of inscriptions were thrown into the sky like water splashes. Woo! Amidst the whistling of the wind, a dozen distorted and flat light shadows streaked across the sky and landed in front of everyone in an instant. A wave of majestic aura emanated from these light shadows, causing everyone to feel suffocated. Just as everyone was about to bow and salute, shwa! A tricolored rainbow bridge appeared among the dozens of lights and shadows, and shot towards the sky where everyone had come from. Boom, boom, boom. Hundreds of mighty pillars of energy descended, and the dozens of glowing figures instantly filled up. In an instant, they transformed into several 100 feet tall inspectors. These inspectors were all around the 6th grade of origin energy. Each of them stood there proudly, allowing the clouds around them to flow like water and cover the area within 100 miles. Woo! The three-colored bridge let out a roar and quickly shrank. An old man with white hair and a whisk flew out from the bridge. This old man had a kind face and looked very hale and hearty. However, when the old man landed in front of them, a formless pressure surged through the mighty aura in the sky, causing everyone to feel as if they were looking up to a tall mountain. This official greets Lord Tai Bai Jinxing. The merit keepers of the Four Seasons did not dare to be negligent. They all bowed and greeted respectfully. Tai Bai Jinxing's gaze swept across the two Jinkongs, and he already knew what had happened. He waved his whisk and said indifferently, "Wait for me to come over. You must have sent a message for this old man to come over because of these two fire apes." "Lord is wise," the merit keepers of the Four Seasons said with a flattering smile, You didn't even wait for this official to speak and you were already able to see the reason. This official truly admires you. Tai Bai Jingxing did not reply. Instead, he looked thoughtfully at the two fire apes, and then raised his head to look in the direction of the eastern sea. He said in bewilderment, "This is really strange. This matter of the real and fake Shen Kong doesn't seem to be arranged by the Immortal Palace. Could it be a test from the Leiyin Temple?" Old man Tai Bai. When the two Shen Kongs saw that Tai Bai Jingxing did not differentiate between the real and fake Shen Kong, and instead suspected that it was a trap from the Leiyin Temple, they could not help but cry out, "What exactly are you?" Before the two Shen Kongs could finish speaking, the two patrol officers roared, "How dare you!" Then, with a loud boom, two bolts of 5 Qi righteous lightning struck down at the same time, hitting the two Shen Kongs. "Ioyo!" The two Shen Kongs cried out in pain at the same time, and they rolled in the air in the same manner. Interesting, interesting. When Tai Bai Jingxing saw the two Shen Kongs in the same situation, his eyes lit up. He could not help but stroke his beard and laughed. Just where did the Leiyin Temple get these demons from? They are actually so intelligent? Damn it. The two Shen Kongs cried out in pain. Lightning circled around their bodies, and the mighty aura turned into inscription chains that bound their hands and feet. At the same time, they cursed softly, "Why are you torturing this old man for no reason? If you have the ability, hurry up and drag this demon out. Demons are hard to get rid of." Tai Bai Jingxing coldly looked at the two Shen Kongs and said, "Even if this demon brought the Mahayana Buddhist scriptures to the hidden immortal continent, how many Buddhist sects can they ignite?" Previously, this old man was still worried, but after looking at this fire ape, this old man finally understood the immortal emperor's intention. As he spoke, Tai Bai Jingxing pointed his finger at the two Shen Kongs, and the two Shen Kongs cried out in pain. Tai Bai Jingxing narrowed his eyes and looked at the two Shen Kongs and said, "Calling yourself, this old man, in front of this old man, didn't Xuanzang teach you to respect the old and love the young?" After speaking, Tai Bai Jingxing looked at the dozen patrol officers and ordered, "Wait and see which one is the real Shen Kongs and which one is the fake fire ape." "Yes, my lord." The dozen patrol officers did not dare to be negligent. A few of them used their eye-cleansing technique to look carefully, and a few of them took out their imperial equipment. Those imperial equipment were either mirrors or rings, and all of them emitted a misty green light. Unfortunately, after half a cup of tea's time, the patrol officers looked at each other in dismay. They looked at each other and said in unison, "My lord, please know that we are unable to identify them." It can't be. Tai Bai Jingxing was somewhat bewildered. Moreover, his face was somewhat embarrassed and angry. "You all have the cultivation of great grandmaster, but you can't even see through the true form of these two demon clans?" "Yes, my lord." The patrol officer at the front was also somewhat ashamed. He replied in a low voice, "With our divine abilities, we can only see two fire apes that are exactly the same. We can't see any difference." Tai Bai Jingxing nodded. "If this is Leiyin Temple's test, how could they let us Confucian cultivators find a flaw so easily? All of you back off?" "Yes, sir." The dozen or so inspectors retreated slightly and sealed off the nearby space. Swoosh! Tai Bai Jingxing waved his hand and a cold light flew out. It was like a full moon rushing into the sky. When this light appeared, everyone could see clearly that it was a mirror that was like a full moon. This mirror was different from ordinary mirrors. The surface of this mirror was light gold. However, this light gold color seemed to be slightly cold. Moreover, the surface of the mirror was not flat. It was actually a layer of uneven surface. The light on the surface of the mirror shot out from the uneven surface, bringing with it some black spots. "Quick!" Tai Bai Jingxing roared. He raised his hand and pointed. The mirror continued to spin in midair, and an oval light shadow was born in midair. Strange. Zhen Han, who was at the side, could clearly see that Tai Bai Jingxing's chanting was actually a Taoist mantra. As for the golden light that came from his finger, it was similar to Taoist magic power. Pooh! Just as Zhen Han was in shock, Tai Bai Jingxing slapped the top of his head. A 5-colored true energy surged out, turning into the shape of a pear blossom and rushed into the sky. When this cloud appeared, not only did it illuminate the surrounding tens of feet, it also caused thousands of pillars of vast chi to crash down. Woo! The cloud let out a trembling sound. In an instant, it expanded, and the 5-colored pear blossom could be seen. It looked very lifelike. Go! Tai Bai Jinxing opened his mouth and blew. A gust of golden chi fell into the 5-colored pear blossom. The cloud rolled and rushed into the light shadow formed by the rolling light shadow. When the cloud fell into the light shadow, it crashed into the mirror. Boom! The sound of thunder suddenly rang out. Strands of lightning appeared on the uneven surface of the mirror. Then the entire surface of the mirror shone brightly. When the mirror flipped again, a faint golden pillar of light flickered a few times before crashing down. It was precisely the two Jiangkongs. How is this possible? After the thunderous roar, there was a deathly silence. However, Zhen Han's cry of surprise came at an untimely moment. It's actually two fire apes? Under the pillar of light, the two Jiangkongs revealed their true demonic appearance. Within the flames that were thousands of feet in size, the two fire apes revealed their ferocious faces. Two sharp fangs protruded from their bloody mouths, and a pair of blood-red eyes were filled with ferocity. After Zhen Han's cry of surprise, she immediately came to her senses and hurriedly said in a low voice, "This junior knows her mistake." Then she lowered her head with confusion in her heart. After all, no one knew the origin of the Jiangkongs. Now that two identical fire apes had appeared, how could the mastermind behind this be ordinary? Tai Bai Jinxing let out a cold snort, and a 5-colored light appeared in his eyes. Within the 5-colored light, inscriptions that were even smaller than ants appeared. These inscriptions quickly gathered in the 5-colored light, forming circles of light. These circles of light rotated like growth rings and slowly fell into Tai Bai Jinxing's eyes. Crack, crack, crack. The moment the circles of light touched his eyes, they immediately produced thunderbolts. These thunderbolts turned into 5-colored lightning and turned into a net. Through this net-like lightning, Tai Bai Jinxing's gaze landed on the two fire apes' true forms. Ah? When he saw the two Jiangkongs in front of him clearly, Tai Bai Jinxing was stunned. Then, as if he didn't dare to believe himself, he blinked his eyes, and the net of thunderbolts in his eyes flashed again. After half a cup of tea's worth of time, Tai Bai Jinxing closed his eyes and the 5-colored halo slowly disappeared. When Tai Bai Jinxing opened his eyes again, a strange smile appeared on his face. It seemed as if he had a card up his sleeve, but at the same time, it seemed as if he didn't know anything. Chapter 45-72. Tai Bai Jinxing raised his hand and pointed. The pillar of light on the mirror disappeared and slowly returned to his hand. Tai Bai Jinxing was not in a hurry to put away the mirror. Instead, he played with the mirror in his hand and looked at the two Jiangkongs whose fire ape true form had completely disappeared. Old man Tai Bai. At this moment, one of the Jiangkongs spoke while the other one didn't. However, right after the first Jiangkong finished speaking, the second Jiangkong also shouted, "Can you tell who is real and who is fake?" "Of course I can." Tai Bai Jinxing seemed to have made a decision and replied with a smile. Speak. The two Jiangkongs shouted together, "Who is real and who is fake?" "Both of you are real and fake." Tai Bai Jinxing replied with a double meaning. "Bullshit." One Jiangkong said angrily, "Since you can tell, why don't you dare to say it? Could it be, this is a scheme set up by your immortal palace?" The other Jiangkong also laughed and said, "Old man Tai Bai, if you can't tell, then just admit it. Why are you deliberately mystifying things here? I heard that Immortal Palace's immortal Emperor Go Qin has a clear sky mirror that can search the entire world. Presumably, that thing can tell who is the real Jiangkong. When His Majesty Immortal Emperor Go Yi makes a move, I can see it clearly." Tai Bai Jinxing said proudly. "If that is the case, Lord Tai Bai Jinxing," one Jiangkong could not help but plead, "tell me, who is the real Jiangkong? If I am the real one, then why didn't I kill that guy?" "This old man has already said that the two of you are both real and fake." Tai Bai Jinxing sneered. Thunder Sound Temple actually did this in hidden Immortal continent. I don't know what their intentions are. If that is the case, then why should I expose them? Let them deal with it themselves. Damn it, damn it. That Zhen Kong shouted, in this world, it is either real or fake. How can there be real and fake? I am the real Zhen Kong. How can he be the real Zhen Kong? Truth and falsehood, falsehood and falsehood, in your mouth, it's actually so profound. The heavens still exist. That's right, that's right. The other Zhen Kong also mocked. Since you know the truth, why don't you say it? It will also let us know who is the true Confucian scripture master. Sun Lei. Tai Bai Jingxing completely ignored the two Zhen Kongs and ordered, take 4 patrol officers with you and protect Chuanzong well. Don't let anything go wrong. This subordinate understands. One of the patrol envoys replied and flew down to the thatched cottage with 4 other patrol envoys. At this moment, one of them, Zhen Kong, was no longer as impatient as before. He looked on coldly without saying a word. Sun Hong. Tai Bai Jingxing ordered, send a message and ask the Thunder Temple's guardian Heavenly King and Namo Wise Manjushri to come back. Tai Bai Jingxing enunciated the word, please, very loudly, as if he was angry. One of the patrol envoys replied and was about to take out a communication object from his waist. At this moment, Tai Bai Jingxing rolled his eyes and said with a smile, Namo Wise Manjushri is a famous bodhisattva of the Thunder Temple. If he doesn't come back after receiving the message, our immortal palace will be guilty of disrespect. Forget it. Sun Hong, go and ask them. I believe they won't be in a hurry to return to the Thunder Temple. Yes, my lord. Sun Hong agreed, and thousands of lights and shadows appeared around her. These lights and shadows twisted and extended toward the east sea along with the great pillar of Qi. Damn it, damn it, damn it. Seeing Sun Hong fly away, the two Zhen Kongs shouted in irritation and waved their magic wands. I'll beat you to death, you damned imposter. Crackle, crackle. The two Zhen Kongs began to fight again. However, because there were several inspectors in the sky who had sealed the space, the two Zhen Kongs could only fight at an altitude of several thousand feet. They could no longer freely descend. Amitabha. Seeing the 5 patrol envoys descending and protecting the thatched cottage, Chuanzong hurriedly walked out of the thatched cottage and bowed. This poor monk has something important to tell you. Sun Lei didn't dare to be negligent. He hurriedly descended and returned the greeting. Master, are you hungry? I'll immediately ask the Earth Lord to bring some vegetarian food here. Amitabha, this poor monk is talking about the two Zhen Kongs. Chuanzong pulled Mao Chao and said, this child can tell who is this poor monk's true disciple. How is that possible? Sun Lei was shocked. These 2 fire apes look exactly the same and their divine abilities are also the same. Even I can't tell them apart. How can this little girl of the mortal realm tell them apart? Amitabha, I'm ashamed to say this. A bitter expression appeared on Chuanzong's face. He said, it's this poor monk's fault. My disciple Zhen Kong accidentally killed Mao Chao's parents in order to subdue demons and devils. Sigh, Amitabha, Amitabha. Sun Lei seemed to have understood and said softly, the power of hatred is too strong. Master, please wait for a moment. After a while, Sun Lei returned and said softly, Lord Tai Bai Jingxing already knows about this. Master, you don't have to care about this matter. We'll know in a while. Chuanzong was puzzled. However, he knew that he was just a mortal. He put his palms together and said, Amitabha, then I'll have to trouble you, benefactors. Then, Chuanzong brought Mao Chao back to the thatched cottage and waited for the truth to come out. After about an hour, the two Zhen Kongs were tired. Just as they were about to stop, a Buddhist light appeared in the distant sky and the sea. Amidst the chanting of sutras, a Buddhist cloud seemed to be moving slowly, but it flew quickly without leaving a trace. It appeared in front of everyone's eyes and immediately appeared in front of them. A mocking look appeared in Tai Bai Jingxing's eyes as he nodded slightly at the inspectors. As the inspectors nodded, they raised their hands and waved. Hundreds of inscription chains appeared and sealed off the space within a few thousand feet. No one could see what was going on inside. Then, Tai Bai Jinxing waved the horsetail whisk in his hand and teleported to the front. He raised his hand and saluted, "Greetings, Manjushri. We've only parted for a few hours. Now, I have to trouble Manjushri to come back. I'm really sorry." Manjushri smiled and hurriedly returned the salute. "Benefactor, you're too polite. We're all waiting for the Sutra of Nirvana to be completed successfully. It's nothing for me to fly back and forth a few times. I just don't know. Benefactor, do you have something important to say?" Saying this, Manjushri looked at the sealed space and was puzzled. Behind him, several heavenly guardians of the Buddhist sect also glared at the inspectors and finally fixed their eyes on Sun Hong. Sun Hong shrugged and flew to Tai Bai Jinxing's side. He only said that Tai Bai Jinxing had something important to say. He didn't mention anything about the two Zhenkongs. "Bodhisattva, you really don't know?" Tai Bai Jinxing smiled again and asked meaningfully. Manjushri shook his head. "I really don't know what you have to say. Please say it clearly." "Bodhisattva." Tai Bai Jinxing frowned and said unhappily, "The matter has already come to this point. Why are you still hiding it? I've already found something strange. If I say it out, Mahavarakana World Venerable's face will not look good." "Benefactor?" Manjushri was even more puzzled. He raised his hand and pointed at the sealed space. "I really don't understand. Is it the strange thing that Shurjin said?" "Indeed." Tai Bai Jinxing saw Manjushri's reaction and felt a little nervous. After answering, he asked tentatively, "Bodhisattva really doesn't know what's inside?" "I really don't know. Please enlighten me." Manjushri nodded and answered. "But..." Tai Bai Jinxing smiled faintly and ordered, "Open the space and invite Manjushri Bodhisattva to take a look." Everyone nodded and waved their hands. All the inscription chains were withdrawn, revealing the two Zhenkongs in the space. Manjushri was shocked. "What? Why are there two Zhenkongs?" "Yes." Tai Bai Jinxing smiled. "There are two Zhenkongs. That's why I don't know which one to choose. I specially invite Manjushri Bodhisattva to guide me." "Bodhisattva, Bodhisattva." The two Zhenkongs immediately jumped out of the space and flew to Manjushri Bodhisattva. They bowed and said, "Zhenkongs greet Bodhisattva." Unfortunately, after saying one sentence, the two Zhenkongs shouted again, "I am the real Zhenkongs." "He is the fake Zhenkongs." "You are the fake Zhenkongs." "I am the real Zhenkongs." The other Zhenkongs shouted with the same voice. As he spoke, the two Zhenkongs roared and started fighting again. Manjushri Bodhisattva frowned and put his palms together. He asked, "Amitabha, Benefactor, which one is the real Zhenkongs?" "I can't tell." Tai Bai Jinxing smiled. "Otherwise, I wouldn't have asked Bodhisattva to return." "Benefactor, didn't you find something fishy?" Manjushri Bodhisattva said unhappily. "Fishy is fishy. The truth is the truth." Tai Bai Jinxing smiled and said, "I can only find something fishy. As for the truth, I'm afraid only the Buddhist faction can find it." Hearing this, Manjushri Bodhisattva understood and said, "Amitabha, Benefactor, you are overthinking. There must be some misunderstanding. My Lei temple has always done things openly. It is impossible for us to do anything behind the scenes. Moreover, Chuanzong just brought his disciple back to the hidden Immortal mainland. How could my Lei temple do something so obvious? This fake Zhenkongs must be from the demon race." Although Manjushri Bodhisattva said firmly, Tai Bai Jinxing was still skeptical. He nodded and said, "Bodhisattva, I can believe in the world venerable. But these two Zhenkongs?" Bodhisattva, please use your divine power and we will know." Chapter 45-73. Amitabha. Manjushri nodded slightly and raised his hand without hesitation. Swoosh! A spot of Buddha's light appeared out of thin air and quickly spread below Manjushri. In the blink of an eye, it covered the space where the two Zhenkongs were fighting. As the Buddha's light fell, countless Sanskrit chants were heard and the sky was covered. The Sanskrit chants were blocked and the Sanskrit chants fell into the ears of the two Zhenkongs. It was so painful that the two Zhenkongs threw away their magic wands and covered their ears with their hands. They rolled in the air in pain. Then, Manjushri raised his foot and stepped on the Buddha's light. In the ripples of the Buddha's light, there were countless phantoms. In the phantoms, there were heavenly dragons, Buddhist kingdoms, and thousands of men and women. The phantoms fell on the two Zhenkongs and an indescribable color appeared. The color faded and disappeared in the Buddha's light. Only two black and white fire apes were left in the space. Amitabha. Manjushri was surprised. He looked at Taibai Jinxing and asked curiously, "How is that possible? Are they really two fire apes that look exactly the same?" "Bodhisattva, you've underestimated the power of that monster." Taibai Jinxing smiled and said, "If the ordinary heavenly feet could see through his true appearance, why did you send me here? These inspectors from the Immortal Palace could kill the fake Zhenkongs." "I understand." Manjushri already understood what Taibai Jinxing meant. He nodded and used his right hand to pinch flower pinching finger. He pointed at the light behind his head. 2 drops of golden light flew out from the light. Behind the golden light, there were tens of thousands of strands of faith. Swoosh! The 2 drops of golden light fell slowly. Wherever they passed, the void collapsed. Countless Buddhist kingdoms were hidden in the Buddha's light. However, after the Buddha's light passed by, the Buddhist kingdoms were annihilated. Indescribable waves came out from the annihilation and fell on the 2 black and white fire apes. When the 2 drops of golden light fell, the 2 fire apes emitted Buddha's light again. It was so bright that even Taibai Jinxing couldn't see what was going on inside. However, Taibai Jinxing heard Manjushri exclaim, "How? How is this possible?" Amitabha. Along with Manjushri's scream, there were many strange phenomena in the sky. Flowers fell from the void, and countless chanting sounds came from the void. Rays of Buddha's light condensed into crystal objects as thick as a child's arm and fell into the light behind Manjushri's head. As the Buddha's light and flowers fell, Manjushri's golden body became bigger and bigger, and the light became more and more dazzling. Great wish fulfilled? Taibai Jinxing was even more surprised. He didn't understand what a fake Zhenkong had to do with Manjushri Bodhisattva's great wish. However, there was more than surprise in his eyes. At this moment, within the Thunderclap Temple, the 10,000 Buddhas were listening to his lecture. Suddenly, the Mahavarakana Buddha Lord, whose mouth was blooming with Buddhist lotuses, shuddered, and Buddhist lights radiated from his body. Countless heavenly flowers fell from the sky of the Thunderclap Temple and bloomed in front of the Lord. Namo Amitabha. As the Mahavarakana Buddha Lord chanted, he turned to look at the Dipankara Archaic Buddha Lord, who had his eyes closed, and transmitted his voice to him. "Senior apprentice brother, did you sense it?" "Amitabha, Lord of the world, I saw it." The Dipankara Archaic Buddha Lord opened his eyes and replied with a neutral expression, "Ananda has appeared." "Sigh, now that he has appeared." The Mahavarakana Buddha Lord sighed and said, "It's still too late." "Amitabha, it's still too late and it's still too early. It doesn't matter if it's sooner or later." The Dipankara Archaic Buddha Lord said and closed his eyes again. The Mahavarakana Buddha Lord didn't stop transmitting his voice to the Dipankara Archaic Buddha Lord. The Thunderclap Temple was still filled with heavenly flowers, and no one knew what had happened. Only the Mahavarakana Buddha Lord, who had concealed himself within the void, frowned slightly, as if he was about to wake up from his meditation. Looking at the shore of the East Sea, the Manjushri Bodhisattva's scream faded away, and the Buddhist lights disappeared. The phenomenon of great wish fulfilled also disappeared instantly. The Manjushri Bodhisattva retracted his foot from the air. With a puzzled expression, his gaze landed on Zhenkong. "How is it?" Seeing that the Manjushri Bodhisattva's surprise didn't seem to be fake, Taibai Jinxing smiled and asked, "Isn't this a little strange? This mystery, should the Thunderclap Temple be the one to uncover it?" "Amitabha." The Manjushri Bodhisattva chanted and said, "Benefactor, it's a long story. However, I can swear on the name of Buddha that I don't know about this, and the Thunderclap Temple doesn't know about this either." "Bodhisattva, what should we do?" Taibai Jinxing pushed the decision to the Manjushri Bodhisattva. However, the Manjushri Bodhisattva didn't hesitate at all and said, "I can't make the decision. I still have to return to the Thunderclap Temple and kowtow to the Mahavairocana Buddha Lord. No way. Tai Bai Jinxing was surprised. It's that serious. It's that serious. The Manjushri Bodhisattva affirmed. Bodhisattva. Before Tai Bai Jinxing could say anything, Zhen Kong shouted, with your abilities, you should know who's real and who's fake, right? The Manjushri Bodhisattva was a little troubled. After a while he replied, Amitba, real is fake is real. When real is fake, the fake is real. Although I can see through it, I can't see through it. What can I do? Bullshit. This Zhen Kong scolded. One is an important minister of the Immortal Palace. The other is a bodhisattva of the Buddhist sect. Both of them can see who's real and who's fake. However, neither of them dares to admit it. One of them says real is fake is real. The other says real is fake is real. Then you tell me who's real and who's fake. That's right. Tai Bai Jinxing nodded and said, real is fake is real. The Manjushri Bodhisattva also shook his head and said, you are wrong. Real is fake is real. Heavens! At this moment, Zhen Kong still didn't dare to call him master. He could only throw himself into the air and cried with tears streaming down his face, in this world, what kind of justice is there? Even the immortal and Buddhist sects don't dare to say the truth. I really don't know. In this world, how can there be such a clear distinction between black and white? Seeing Zhen Kong, the Manjushri Bodhisattva felt much better. He chanted and said, Amitba, Zhen Kong, there is no need for you to say any more. When we reach the Leiyin Temple, the truth will naturally be revealed. That's right, you fake. Why are you crying here? When we reach the Leiyin Temple, in front of my Buddha, everything will be revealed. The other Zhen Kong stood in the air and sneered. Zhen Kong was furious. He waved his magic wand and pounced towards the other Zhen Kong. The other Zhen Kong also said angrily, you are the fake. With that, the two Zhen Kongs started fighting again. Amitba. The Manjushri Bodhisattva chanted and waved his kasaya, capturing the two Zhen Kongs in the air. He turned his head and said to Tai Bai Jinxing, I will have to trouble benefactor to stay here. I will be back soon. Take care, take care. Tai Bai Jinxing knew the importance of this matter. He cupped his hands and said, with this old man here to protect Chuanzong, nothing will happen. Just as he said that, woo-woo, a gust of evil wind blew. In the East Sea, a huge pig demon flew out from the sea and flew towards them. This pig demon was naturally Zhenjie. He scanned with his essence will and immediately realized that something was wrong. He blocked the Manjushri Bodhisattva and the other heavenly guardians. He shouted, Isn't this Manjushri Bodhisattva? Why do you have the time to come here from the Leiyin Temple? Could it be that you saw that we have been working hard in the sutra-seeking state of bliss and wanted to invite us to have a vegetarian meal? Amitba. Facing Zhenjie, who was stronger than him, the Manjushri Bodhisattva stopped. He clasped his hands together and said, the sutra-seeking state of bliss is in trouble. I am here to subdue this demon. This demon is of great importance. I cannot make the decision. I can only bring them back to the Leiyin Temple and ask Mahavairocana of the world to personally issue a Buddhist decree. Damn it. Hearing that the sutra-seeking state of bliss was in trouble, Zhenjie immediately jumped up and said, who did this? 3 monster kings just came. I fought them off with great difficulty. I chased them for several days to find out their background, but they still ran away. I didn't expect that they would create a diversion. Oh, by the way, Bodhisattva, how is my master? Chuanzong is fine. Manjushri Bodhisattva didn't dare to say more as he was afraid that Zhenjie would cause trouble. He said hurriedly, he is now under the protection of Tai Bai Jinxing, the inspector and the 4 seasons meritorious ministers of the Immortal Palace. He is very safe. I won't talk more with you. Go and protect Chuanzong now. Yes, Bodhisattva. Seeing that the Manjushri Bodhisattva was anxious, Zhenjie didn't dare to say more. He bowed and watched the Manjushri Bodhisattva leave. However, after flying for a few miles, Zhenjie suddenly shouted, Bodhisattva, Tell Mahavirakhana of the world not to cause any trouble. Fighting and killing every day. You don't look like a monk at all. Manjushri Bodhisattva's body swayed in the air. He said a few words to the guardian king and then turned into Buddha's light and left. When the Manjushri Bodhisattva couldn't see him anymore, Zhenjie stuck out his tongue and shouted, "Oh my! What happened?" Even the Manjushri Bodhisattva came. "I have to go and take a look. I don't want my master to know that I sneaked out to sleep." When Zhenjie came back, the inspector and the Four Seasons meritorious ministers were relieved and didn't dare to stop him. After Zhenjie greeted Tai Bai Jinxing, they put him into the thatched cottage. Seeing that Zhen Han and the dragon horse Zhen Feng were outside the thatched cottage and that Cao Cao and Chuanzong were inside the cottage, Zhenjie was immediately angry and shouted, "Master, where did that damn fire ape go? I was just chasing after the 3 demon kings. How dare he neglect his duty and cause Master to suffer such a great fright?" Chapter 45-74. Amitba, Zhenjie, don't worry. Chuanzong knew that Nama wise Manjushri had taken away the 2 Zengkongs, so he was relieved and said, "Wait for me to tell you what happened. Okay, please tell me, Master." Zhenjie listened and sat down on the ground again. His shrunken body still looked clumsy. After Chuanzong told him about the real and fake Shen Kong, Zhenjie jumped up from the ground and shouted, "How is this possible? There's a fire ape that looks exactly like Shen Kong? Even Tai Bai Jinxing and Nanwu Wisdom Manjushri couldn't tell the difference? That's how it should be." Chuanzong was naturally kept in the dark. He pointed at Chang Chao and said, "Chang Chao can tell, so I told you to wait until you came back. Sai, Master, those 3 demon kings are really powerful." Zhenjie quickly denied responsibility and said, "I chased them for a long time but couldn't catch up to them. I'm sorry for making you suffer." "Amitba, it doesn't matter if I suffer or not." Chuanzong replied, "Just don't let Shen Kong suffer. Although he's a bit cruel and lacks the compassion of a Buddhist disciple, he's doing it for my own good. I'd rather suffer in his place." "Don't worry, Master." Zhenjie waved his hand and said, "This matter has been brought up to Vairocana revered Buddha. He'll definitely clear second junior brother's name." "That's for the best." Chuanzong nodded, but then he became worried and said, "However, I'm still worried. What are you worried about, Master?" Zhenjie smiled and said, "In the 3 continents, other than..." Zhenjie glanced at the sky and lowered his voice. "Other than Immortal Emperor Go Qin and the great saints of the Great Sacred Hall, who else can be stronger than Vairocana revered Buddha?" "I hope so." Chuanzong nodded and looked at Chang Chao, saying, "Chang Chao is hungry. Zhenjie, go get some vegetarian food and come back." "Yes, Master," Zhenjie replied. Then he turned around and shouted, "Gong Chao of the 4 Seasons, quickly come out." Hearing Zhenjie's shout, Gong Chao hesitated and glanced at Tai Bai Jinxing, who was sitting cross-legged in the sky. Boom! Suddenly, Gong Chao felt a sharp pain in his head, as if 10,000 horses were trampling over him. His body fell from the sky involuntarily, and Zhenjie's cold snort was heard amidst the thundering hooves. "I'm calling you, where are you looking?" "Yes." The Gong Chao of the 4 Seasons didn't dare to be negligent. He quickly landed and bowed. "Grandmaster, what are your orders?" Tai Bai Jinxing sat cross-legged in midair with his eyes closed as if he had not seen anything. After all, this was a demonic beast that was on the verge of reaching the 9th grade of essence force. Even someone as powerful as Tai Bai Jinxing did not want to bother with him. "My master is hungry. Hurry up and go beg for alms," Zhenjie ordered. "Oh." The temple of the 4 Seasons paused and looked around. There were indeed a few patrol envoys standing guard at the side of the thatched cottage. They could only respond and move into the distance. "This matter is a little strange." Zhenjie took out a strand of seaweed from somewhere and held it in his mouth. He lay down, crossed his legs, and shook his trotters. He looked at the roof of the thatched cottage and thought to himself, "There's actually a demonic beast that can transform into a fire ape. What is this demonic beast trying to do? Could it be that he wants to replace Shen Kong? Damn it, if it was Zhen Han or Zhen Feng, I wouldn't care. But this is Zhen Kong, and Taoist Xiao mentioned him before. If anything happens to Zheng Kong, Taoist Shao will skin me alive. But it's fine. Now, everything will be handed over to Mahavarakana. I'm sure Taoist Shao won't blame me when he finds out. While Zhen Jie was worried, Namo Wise Manjushri raised his hand and pointed at the light behind his head. A Buddhist light gushed out from the light and surged into the void. The void was torn apart layer by layer. As the void overlapped, a majestic Lei temple with overflowing Buddhist light vaguely appeared in the void. As soon as the Buddhist light fell into the Lei temple, the void immediately collapsed and everything disappeared. A teleportation channel condensed from Buddhist light appeared under Namo Wise Manjushri's feet. Amitba. Namo Wise Manjushri looked at the Buddhist light condensed into golden runes that flowed around the channel like tadpoles. He chanted Buddhist names and stepped on the channel. Woo woo. A strange wind whistled in the space around the channel. Namo Wise Manjushri's figure disappeared into the channel, and the channel also disappeared into the void. Revered One. In the Lei temple, Mahavarakana was still chanting. Amidst the heavenly flowers, the guardian heavenly king reported, Namo Wise Manjushri has an important matter to report. Namo Amitba. Mahavarakana's face showed mercy. He closed his mouth and said, Buddhism is fate. My Buddha will not help those who are not fated. Dharma is also fate. Dharma will not be taught to those who are not fated. Today's chanting ends here. Amitba. Disciples thank Revered One for your teachings. 10,000 Buddhas chanted Buddhist names and bowed. Summon Manjushri. Mahavarakana's eyebrows did not raise as he ordered lightly. Namo Wise Manjushri flew into the Lei temple and hurriedly bowed. Disciple greets Revered One. Amitba. Mahavarakana smiled. Is the handover of the East Sea smooth? The sutra seeking extreme bliss is coming to an end. I think the Immortal Palace will also pay attention to it. Revered One. Namo Wise Manjushri thought for a moment and replied, the handover of the sutra seeking extreme bliss went very smoothly. Disciple and the guardian heavenly king handed everything over to Taibai Jinxing and the many inspectors. Very good. Mahavarakana nodded. Since that's the case, Manjushri, is there anything urgent that made you rush back to the Lei temple? Namo Wise Manjushri looked at the Buddhas in the Lei temple and pondered for a moment. Then he told Revered One about the real and fake Zheng Kong. Finally he said, Revered One, please no. Disciple can't make a decision. That's why I brought both Zheng Kong here. Revered One, please make a decision. Mahavarakana's curiosity was piqued and he asked, I've seen this Zheng Kong before. He's only a fire ape with 4th grade elemental energy. Who would transform into his appearance and impersonate him? Moreover, he's a demon with 4th grade elemental energy. Can't you tell? At this point, the Mahavarakana Revered Buddha's gaze froze. Then, the mirror behind his head suddenly spun rapidly. In an instant, countless pillars of Buddhist light rushed into the void. The Mahavarakana Revered Buddha said mercifully, I understand now. Invite the 2 Zheng Kongs out. Yes, Revered One. Namo Wise Manjushri did not dare to delay. He swung his kasaya and the 2 Zheng Kong fell out. The 2 Zheng Kong landed. When they looked around, tears welled up in their eyes. They knelt in front of the 9-grade lotus platform and said, Revered One, disciple has escorted Xuanzang's master to seek the sutra in nirvana and experienced countless difficulties. Now, we've just left the Eastern Sea territory and entered the hidden Immortal continent. I never expected that there would be a daring demon who dared to disguise himself as disciple and tried to steal disciples' merit of seeking the sutra. Although Taibai Jinxing and Manjushri Bodhisattva could see clearly, they did not dare to make a rash judgment. They only said what was real and what was fake was real. These disciples did not understand. Now, disciple has rushed to the front of Revered One. I hope that Revered One can uphold justice for disciple and clear disciple's name. Venerable Manjushri, do you know why you can't make a decision? Mahavarakana's Revered One asked with a smile. Namo Wise Manjushri was startled. He hurriedly bowed and said, Revered One, please enlighten me. Although you are knowledgeable in Buddhism, you don't understand cause and effect. You only know how to do things, but you don't know the cause and effect of things. Mahavarakana's revered one replied indifferently, do you not know the cause of the sutra in nirvana? Do you not know the cause of your great ambition? First, there was the matter of seeking the sutra, then there was the person seeking the sutra. Do you know who is real and who is fake? Nama wise Manjushri revealed a smile and nodded. Disciple understands. The cause is real and the effect is fake. The cause is real and the effect is fake. Then, who do you think is real and who is fake? Mahavarakana's revered one asked with a smile. Naturally, this Zhenkong is fake. With that, Nama wise Manjushri pointed at one of the Zhenkong and said seriously. That Zhenkong shouted and jumped up. He said furiously, bullshit Bodhisattva. How can you reverse black and white? I'm the real Zhenkong, he's the fake Zhenkong. Amitba, Zhenkong, you're real and fake. Do you know? Mahavarakana's revered one chuckled. I don't want to listen, I don't want to listen, I don't want to listen. Zhenkong waved his hand impatiently and said, I can't be bothered to talk nonsense with you baldies. I'm going to find someone who understands. Someone who understands can be the judge for me. With that, Zhenkong moved his body and was about to fly away. The other Zhenkong laughed and pointed at that Zhenkong and said, see, I already said that you're fake and you're still trying to be brave. Where can you go now? Who can help you? Damn it. You fig. When that Zhenkong saw that Zhenkong mocked him, he was already furious. Seeing that he had nowhere to run, he waved his magic wand and smashed it at the other Zhenkong. You dare to show killing intent in front of Buddha, and you still say that you're not the fake Zhenkong? That Zhenkong was not afraid at all. He looked on as the magic wand fell and said, you're not worthy of sutra seeking nirvana. Amitba. Mahavarakana's revered one chanted and pointed his finger. That Zhenkong's magic wand fell to the ground and he was unable to move. Compassion appeared in the eyes of Mahavarakana's revered one and he said, Zhenkong, don't be anxious. Listen to this seat's explanation. When you understand, you'll know why you're fake and he's real. Chapter 45-75. Smack. Before the Mahavarakana revered Buddha could finish his words, Zhenkong waved his magic wand and hit Zhenkong's head. Under the magic wand, this Zhenkong couldn't move. He was glaring at the Mahavarakana revered Buddha, but he didn't expect Zhenkong to suddenly attack. He didn't have the strength to fight back at all. Seeing the magic wand coming at him like a huge mountain, this Zhenkong's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. In the blink of an eye, thousands of lights and shadows flashed before his eyes. There were humans and monsters that he had eaten alive, humans that he had burned to death with his flames, and even monsters that he had killed with his magic wand. In the end, all the lights and shadows converged to form Xiao Hua's figure, an indomitable giant that stood between the heavens and the earth. Zhenkong cried out mournfully, Master? His tone was filled with reluctance, unwillingness, awakening, and regret. However, all of his emotions were turned into nothingness under the magic wand. This Zhenkong didn't even have the time to scream. His brain exploded, and he died in front of the rank 9 Buddhist lotus. Following that, a primordial spirit flew out from Zhenkong's body. Zhenkong's eyes were sharp, and he waved his magic wand again. The Mahavarakana revered Buddha cried out in alarm. He raised his hand and imprisoned Zhenkong. He said angrily, Amitba. Zhenkong, how can you kill without permission? Revered one. Zhenkong giggled. This fake disturbed the sutra seeking extreme bliss and wanted to take away my merits. How can I let him go? Moreover, since he dared to be so arrogant in front of the revered one, he must have something to rely on. If I don't kill him, won't I be destroying the prestige of Buddhism? Revered one, did you not hear me? This fake even called me master before he died. This so-called master must be the mastermind behind all this. A rare trace of anger appeared in the Mahavarakana revered Buddha's eyes. He stared at Zhenkong for a few breaths of time before he said dejectedly, Amitba. Zhenkong, your killing intent is too strong. Although you have contributed greatly by escorting Xuanzang, you have also broken many rules. I hope that this is the last time you break the precepts. In the future, you have to take this as a warning and cultivate properly. Otherwise, the sutra praying in nirvana will be for naught in the end. As the Mahavarakana World Venerable finished his words, thunderous roars sounded around the Thunder Temple. Many places in the Thunder Temple collapsed, showing signs of decline. Countless Buddhist kingdoms were rapidly annihilated, and countless men and women were wailing in pain in the annihilation. Furthermore, the Buddhist light around the Mahavarakana World Venerable and the entire Thunder Temple was also declining. Billions of heavenly flowers fell from the void of the Thunder Temple. As they fell, they withered and turned into dust. Master! When Zhen Kong saw the change in the Thunder Sound Temple, he couldn't help but be shocked. When his gaze landed on the Mahavarakana revered Buddha, he was even more shocked. He couldn't help but cry out, Amitabha, the revered Buddha is, see. When Zhen Kong saw the change, so did the 10,000 Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Shocked voices sounded from all over the Thunder Sound Temple. Amitabha, excellent, excellent. Half of the Vairocana Buddha golden body that was previously radiating light rapidly withered as the Buddha's light faded. In just a moment, it had turned into a withered grayish-black color. Although there was still some Buddha's light flowing on it, the Buddha's light was also mixed with a grayish-black color. Even in the light condensed from the power of faith behind the Mahavarakana World Venerable's head, half of the light turned pitch-black. Namo Amitabha. Namo Daxing Samantabhadra Bodhisattva stood before the Buddhist lotus and couldn't help but put his palms together. Revered Buddha, what's going on? My Buddha, is there a tribulation? Amitabha, tribulation is precepts, precepts are also desires. Desires can be fate, and fate can be the result. The benevolence on the Mahavairocana World Venerable's face didn't change. Then he said to Zhen Kong, do you understand? Amitabha, Zhen Kong threw away his devil wand and knelt before the 9 grades Buddhist lotus. He said respectfully, I'll remember your words, revered Buddha. From today onwards, I won't commit any more murders. I'll do my best to escort Xuanzang back to the Longevity Town and erect the golden body of the Namo Amitabha Bodhisattva on the river Tide Ridge. Go! The Mahavairocana World Venerable flicked his sleeves and said, Thank you, revered Buddha. I'll take my leave now. Zhen Kong bowed. After he stood up, he stared at the Mahavarakana World Venerable's withering glory golden body for a while. Then he lowered his head and left. The guardian heavenly king brought him back to the East Sea. For a moment, the 10,000 Buddhas looked at the withered golden body of the Mahavarakana World Venerable and didn't know what to say. Senior apprentice brother. The Mahavairocana World Venerable asked in a low voice, Am I, or wrong? Amitabha, there's no wrong and there's no right. There's no right or wrong in this world. The Dipankara Archaic Buddha World Venerable chanted, Zhen Kong is wrong for being too cruel. What's wrong is, the timing of the Nirvana scripture praying was wrong. Namo Maitreya Buddha. At this moment, beside the Mahavarakana World Venerable, the Maitreya Buddha World Venerable's golden body appeared from the void. Other than benevolence, there was also a hint of anger on his face. World Venerable, I think you're wrong. Amitabha, what wrong have I done? The Mahavairocana World Venerable raised his head. He didn't look at the Mahavairocana World Venerable. Instead, he glanced at the 10,000 Buddhas and asked in a low voice. The World Venerable's Buddhist mantras are well versed in the heavens and the earth. You're the number 1 person in our Buddhism. The Mahavairocana World Venerable glanced at the 10,000 Buddhas and said, In this world, when it comes to seeing through the mundane world and karma, I'm afraid no other Buddhas would dare to compare with the World Venerable. However, even if the World Venerable has reached the golden body multiple transformations and is close to the limit, he's still a distance away from attaining the Buddha fruit. Moreover, according to my opinion, even if one's Buddha position is eternally solidified and attains the 9 transformations golden body, one would only be the lord of a region and the ruler of a world. Following the heavens and earth, reincarnation, and myriad eras, it still can't be compared. The so-called karma is the long river of time and space. Any cause may seem small, but the effect it causes is subtle. No one can forcefully disturb karma, not even my Buddha. The world venerable saw that the karma of this world had already been formed, yet he still had distracting thoughts and wanted to interfere with karma. Isn't that wrong? Amitba. The Mahavairakana world venerable chanted but didn't answer. Namo Maitreya Buddha. Since the creation of the world venerable Buddhism sect, countless Buddhas have been diligently pursuing the truth of Buddhism for countless years. The Mahavairakana world venerable continued. However, our Buddhism sect is now divided into 10 sects, namely the Attainment sect, the Possession sect, the Nature sect, the Harmony sect, the Tiantai sect, the Virtuous Head sect, the Zen sect, the Pure Land sect, the Vinaya sect, and the Tantra sect. Other than these 10 sects, there are countless smaller branches. Is their Buddhism sect the same as our Buddhism truth? In this disciple's opinion, not necessarily. This disciple thinks that our Buddhism sect's disciples are now burdened by their physical bodies. They have abandoned everything in their physical bodies and don't want to farm or fish. They only rely on offerings. If we Buddhas are pure of heart and few desires, it's fine. We can make a living with simple tea and plain food. However, there aren't many Buddhas who are pure of heart. This inevitably leads to misunderstandings. This is also the fatal point of the Confucian cultivators attacking our Buddhism sect. The so-called vermin is nothing more than this. This disciple has seen the Buddhas in the hidden Immortal continent where a Buddhism sect was established. They supported themselves and didn't need to solicit alms. Similarly, they could use the property of the temple to support the old, the weak, the sick, and the disabled. They really did achieve widows, and loneliness. Then, Namo Maitreya Buddha spoke of his thoughts and his recent enlightenment. There was no lack of inconsistencies with the Pure Land world. Amitba. Junior apprentice brother, what do you mean by this? The Mahavairakana Buddha Lord listened quietly. In the end, the Buddhas were stunned and asked again. The mistake of the Buddha Lord has already been made. Moreover, the impact is severe. The Mahavairakana Buddha Lord's gaze showed no fear. He looked at the Mahavairakana Buddha Lord and said, "This disciple feels that this mistake is detrimental to the development of our Buddhism sect in the Pure Land world. Therefore, I hope that the Mahavairakana Buddha Lord and the Dipankara Archaic Buddha Lord will reconsider." Only reconsider? Asked the Mahavairakana Buddha Lord. Our Buddhism sect's words don't lie in words. It doesn't lie in words. Junior apprentice brother has spoken for so long. I already know what he's thinking. Mahavairakana Buddha Lord. The Dipankara Archaic Buddha Lord, who had been silent for a long time, finally spoke. The connection between the Pure Land world and the Buddhism kingdom has been severed for a long time. Not only is the flow of karma blocked, the cycle of reincarnation is also in chaos. Junior apprentice brother's vindication, the birth of the Namo Mahavadi Samantabhadra, and the mystery of the Namo Mahavadi Samantabhadra Bodhisattva's voice of the world. All of these revealed a trace of chaos in the Buddhism kingdom. Also, the mystery of the true and false chastity is also the tip of the iceberg. With so many entanglements, let alone junior apprentice brother and me, even the Mahavairakana Buddha Lord can't see clearly. Therefore, the Lord's judgment. At this point, the Dipankara Archaic Buddha Lord stopped. Half a teardrop flowed out of his eyes, and his originally miserable face became even more sorrowful. Whether the Buddha nature is more than the human nature, or whether the human nature is more important than the Buddha nature, our Buddhism sect has never come to a conclusion. This disciple doesn't want to be entangled with the Lord any longer. The Mahavairakana Buddha Lord's expression was calm as water. He said calmly, "However, if the Buddha nature is imposed on the human nature, using one's own benefits to overpower the Buddha's benefits, then the Buddha is also a devil. Not only is my Buddha the Mahavairakana Buddha Lord's Buddha, but I'm also the Dipankara Archaic Buddha Lord's Buddha and the Mahavairakana Buddha Lord's Buddha. I can't bear to see the Buddhas of the Pure Land world go astray. Junior apprentice brother, are you rebelling against the Thunderclap Temple?" The Mahavairakana Buddha Lord wasn't surprised at all. He said calmly, "Junior apprentice brother, don't forget that you've only been in my Thunderclap Temple for a few years. You don't even know the secrets of my Thunderclap Temple. Lord, it doesn't matter if it's a day or a moment. If you don't realize it now, So what if it's 10,000 years? The Thunderclap Temple isn't here, nor is it far away. The Thunderclap Temple is in this disciple's heart. The Mahavairakana Buddha Lord answered. As long as this disciple stays true to his heart, where isn't the Thunderclap Temple? Chapter 45-76. Junior Apprentice Brother. The Dipankara archaic Buddha's tears were already dripping down. Through the void, they transformed into countless rivers and flooded countless Buddhist kingdoms. An ancient voice resounded within the Thunder Monastery. Have you decided? Not bad. The Maitreya Buddha nodded firmly. Such a Buddha is not a disciple's Lei-in temple. Such a Buddhist sect is also not a disciple's Buddhist sect. As the future Lord Buddha, I have to think about the future. Junior brother, do you think you can walk out of the Thunder Temple? The Dipankara archaic Buddha's world lord's voice carried a hint of threat. All of a sudden, a commotion broke out within the Thunder Sound Temple. The Maitreya Buddha smiled and raised his hand to slap his forehead. Boom! A Buddhist cloud gushed out with a Buddhist artifact floating in the cloud. 10,000 rays of Buddhist light soared into the sky as thousands of treasures surged. 7 Wonders Tree. The Dipankara archaic Buddha's world lord was shocked, while the myriad Buddha's expressions changed. Namo Maitreya Buddha. At that moment, 30% of the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, and Arhats bowed in respect. Can I walk out of the Thunder Temple with the help of the Tree of 7 Wonders? The corners of Maitreya Buddha's mouth curled into a smile. Can this disciple use the 7 Wonders tree to spread the Buddha's light across the 3 continents? Can this disciple use the 7 Wonders tree to retrieve the distorted Buddha's light? Perhaps. The Dipankara archaic Buddha remained silent. Namo Amitabha. The Mahavairakana world venerated one looked at the wonderful tree of 7 treasures that was overflowing with treasure light. His withered face was also a little stunned, but he said benevolently, Junior brother, do you still remember the agreement we made that day? Of course I remember. Maitreya Buddha said curiously. Didn't you say that I have a heart tribulation? Disciple has cultivated a Buddhist heart and diligently cleaned the mirror. There was no demonic tribulation that came close to me. Amitabha. The Mahavairakana Buddha shook his head and said, I'm talking about your actions against the Thunder Temple, not your demonic tribulation. Namo Maitreya Buddha. Maitreya Buddha world honored one chanted the name of Buddha. After a moment of hesitation, he nodded and said, I understand. I will never do anything that goes against Lei-in temple. However, before the revered one of the world understands, I am not willing to stay in the Lei-in temple. I would like to bring a group of bodhisattvas to another place to cultivate. As for when to return to the Lei-in temple, that will depend on when the revered one of the world can cultivate his golden body again. As he spoke, the Maitreya Buddha raised his hand and was about to take away Zhen Kong's corpse and the soul entrenched in the Buddhist light. However, his hand moved and he stopped. He coldly looked at the Mahavairakana revered one and said, Revered one, this corpse should be left as a warning to the revered one. Furthermore, this disciple would like to ask the revered one of the world to properly preserve this corpse and soul so that he can give an account to his master in the future. What? Mahavairakana revered Buddha was suddenly stunned and asked curiously, Isn't his master, Namo Maitreya Buddha and revered one of the world can interfere with karma? Why can't others interfere with reincarnation? After the Maitreya Buddha finished speaking, he slowly got up. The 9-grade lotus platform below him also moved. The wonderful tree of 7 treasures above his head covered his golden body. A golden crack appeared in front of the Maitreya Buddha's head. The outline of a palace door appeared at the edge of the crack. Namo Maitreya Buddha. At this moment, a Buddhist chant resounded. Namo Maitreya Samantabhadra Bodhisattva moved his lotus platform and said, This disciple is willing to follow Namo Maitreya Buddha to cultivate outside. Namo Maitreya Buddha, this disciple is also willing to cultivate with you. At this moment, 40% of the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Arhats, and other Buddhas stood up and left their seats. Leaving is staying, and staying is also leaving. Cultivation has always been in the heart. The Maitreya Buddha chanted loudly and stepped into the palace door. Junior apprentice brother, Where do you want to cultivate? The Dipankara archaic Buddha suddenly asked. Snowy mountain, small exquisite temple. A voice faintly resounded. Not only did the Maitreya Buddha's figure disappear, but the other Buddhas also disappeared, and the Buddhist lights were extinguished. After a while, the Mahavarakana revered Buddha's voice resounded again. All Buddhas, retreat. Yes, revered one of the world. It was still the respectful voice of the 10,000 Buddhas. However, this voice was much fainter and weaker, just like the withered heavenly flowers in the Thunder Sound Temple. Revered Buddha. The Dipankara archaic Buddha's voice resounded amidst the bleakness. I've been thinking about it for a long time, but I still couldn't figure out why the Maitreya Buddha's revered Buddha would have a heart tribulation. Previously, I thought that he had recklessly attained enlightenment, causing his foundation to be unstable. However, I didn't expect that the cause was actually Ananda. Yes, the Mahavarakana revered Buddha's mouth was filled with bitterness as he answered, I didn't expect it either. Then, who's Jinkong's master? The Dipankara archaic Buddha asked as he looked at Jinkong's corpse and soul. The Mahavarakana revered Buddha answered plainly, Senior apprentice brother, why do you need me to say it? Don't tell me you don't know? Sigh, who else could it be other than Taoist Shao, who has no origin and whose karma can't be detected? The Dipankara archaic Buddha sighed and said, This time, Ananda is in trouble. Since the revered Buddha is involved in this karma, he can't just ignore it. Fortunately, the Mahavarakana revered Buddha nodded slightly and said, Although the Fortune Gate's disciples have cleansed the heaven and earth board, and the Immortal Palace's feathers have perished in the soaring Dragon Mountain range, Xiaohua is only a human Mahayana realm essence Qi midstage 9th grade. He's still not enough to threaten my Thunder Sound Temple. Although the Maitreya Buddha has betrayed the Thunder Sound Temple, he still has the Thunder Sound Temple in his heart. Revered Buddha, you can't ignore his words. The Dipankara archaic Buddha advised, Revered Buddha, you still have to think about how to resolve this sudden karma. Namo Amitabha. I understand. The Mahavarakana revered Buddha nodded and raised his finger. A 5-colored crystal flew out from the Buddha lotus and landed on Jinkong's soul. The soul struggled unyieldingly for a while before slowly falling into the crystal. Then, it was kept by the Mahavarakana revered Buddha's lotus platform. As for the corpse, the Mahavarakana revered Buddha also kept it into his lotus platform after some consideration. Seeing that the Mahavarakana revered Buddha had already made up his mind, the Dipankara archaic Buddha was originally very calm. However, he suddenly felt a slight change in the Thunder Sound Temple's karmic cycle. He couldn't help but look at the Mahavarakana revered Buddha in surprise and wanted to ask about it. However, before the Dipankara archaic Buddha could speak, the Mahavarakana revered Buddha calmly said, Don't let others know. Silence is golden. Namo Dipankara archaic Buddha, Namo Amitabha, Namo Amitabha. A hint of surprise flashed across the Dipankara archaic Buddha's face. He put his palms together and chanted 3 Buddha names in a row. So that's how it is. Namo Amitabha's betrayal of the Thunder Sound Temple was something that had never happened in the pure land of ultimate bliss. However, the Thunder Sound Temple remained as silent as ever, as if it hadn't moved at all. When the Mahavarakana revered Buddha forcefully interfered with the karmic cycle and caused the Thunder Sound Temple's Buddha lights to fall, Chunzong, who was sitting cross-legged in a dilapidated thatched cottage by the East Sea, suddenly opened his eyes. Within his clear eyes, an extremely dim Buddha light suddenly appeared. As the Buddha light flashed by, Chunzong closed his eyes as well. However, within Chunzang's Naiwan Palace, boundless Buddha light appeared out of nowhere and illuminated the entire Naiwan Palace. Within the Buddha light, the golden radiance that was previously hidden within Chunzang's Naiwan Palace appeared with a whoosh. Within the golden radiance, the silhouette of another Buddha Lord's golden statue appeared. As soon as this golden statue appeared, it was already 9 feet tall. Moreover, below the 9 feet tall statue was a 9-grade lotus platform. Behind its head, a faint radiance flickered. These were the signs of the Buddha Lord's initial formation. Namo Amitabha. Shock appeared on Chunzang's face as he silently chanted Buddha's name in his heart. He sighed inwardly. Could it be that the message left within the golden radiance is real? However, I really don't know what exactly happened in the Thunder Sound Temple. Is this change a blessing or a tragedy? Is it a blessing or a curse? After an unknown period of time, a low voice could be heard outside the thatched cottage. Master, I'm back. Oh! Hearing this familiar voice, Chun Zhang's face lit up with joy. He hurriedly got up from the ground and walked out of the thatched cottage. Outside the cottage, the sky was bright. Zhen Kong was still standing arrogantly in the distance. However, at this moment, there was an additional layer of joy on his face from surviving a calamity. In front of him, Zhen Jie frowned and sized up Zhen Kong. He didn't allow him to approach the thatched cottage. After Zhen Jie left, Dragon Horse Zhen Feng and Zhen Han also hid far away, secretly on guard. Tai Bai Jingxing and the other people from the Immortal Palace were long gone. Clearly, they had already left when the Thunder Sound Temple's guardian king sent Zhen Kong back. Zhen Kong, what happened in the Thunder Sound Temple? Chun Zong was somewhat anxious. He took a few steps forward and asked. Zhen Jie raised his hand and blocked Chun Zong. He said, Master, wait a moment. I keep feeling that there's something wrong with this Zhen Kong. However, I can't see anything wrong with him. Let the grass come out and take a look. What's wrong? Chun Zong was startled. He looked at Zhen Kong and asked curiously. 2 Zhen Kongs went to the Thunder Sound Temple and 1 returned. This is naturally the real Zhen Kong. Mahavairakana world revered Buddha is perceptive. How can he not see which one is real and which one is fake? Eldest martial brother, don't worry. Zhen Kong said loudly, that fake Zhen Kong was already killed by me on the spot. Zhen Kong's voice was extremely loud. It had already traveled into the thatched cottage. Sigh, Zhen Kong. Chun Zong grumbled, why did you break the vow to kill again? Although that fake Zhen Kong was of the demon race and also interfered with our sutra-seeking extreme bliss, it was also a type of merit. Perhaps he deserved to die, but you didn't have the authority to kill him. Since you broke the vow to kill, wouldn't you lose merit? What I told you before, why didn't you listen to me? Chapter 45-77. Amit Ba. Zhen Kong threw down his magic wand and prostrated himself on the ground. Master, you are right. This is what Mahavairakana said in Lei Temple. It is because disciple committed too many murders that I attracted the demonic tribulation. That fake Zhen Kong is the manifestation of disciple's inner demon. By killing the fake Zhen Kong, disciple will be killing my inner demon. Disciple has also said in front of revered one that from today onwards, disciple will not dare to recklessly kill. Excellent, excellent. There is a saying in the secular world that a prodigal who repents is more precious than gold. Zhen Kong, if you can really change, then Master's nagging for so many years was not in vain. Chun Zhang was overjoyed when he heard this and took a few steps forward. Damn it, Zhen Han. Zhen Jie said angrily, did you not hear? Hurry up and call Chang Chao out. Yes, eldest senior brother. Seeing Zhen Jie, who even Tai Bai Jingxing did not want to provoke, Zhen Han hurriedly floated to the front of the straw hut. As he walked in, he called out, Master, don't be anxious. Amit Ba. Chun Zhang smiled and stood still. He looked at Zhen Kong, who had his head lowered, and said with a smile, Master believes that this is the real Zhen Kong. Chang Chao rubbed his eyes as he was dragged out of the straw hut by Zhen Han. He looked around in confusion. Zhen Jie squeezed out a smile that he thought was amiable and asked, Chang Chao, you said before that you can differentiate between the real Zhen Kong and the fake Zhen Kong. To be honest, I do not believe those people from Lei Temple. I am afraid that they are trying to deceive Master. I believe that you also do not wish for a demon to harm Master. Can you see if this Zhen Kong is the real Zhen Kong? Alright. Chang Chao's eyes flashed and he nodded vigorously at Zhen Jie before looking at Zhen Kong, who was prostrating on the ground. Zhen Kong. Zhen Jie yelled, raise your head and let the grass see if you are the real Zhen Kong. AI, eldest senior brother. Zhen Kong said and raised his head, this little brother is Zhen Kong. I can even recognize Lei Temple's Mahavairakana revered one. Zhuo Chao trembled when he saw Zhen Kong lifting his head. His eyes were filled with fear as he instinctively dodged towards Chunzong. Chuanzong took a look inside. Xinjie, there is no need to look anymore. This is the real Jin Kong. Xinjie had already asked Yarrow Grass before. Now that he saw Yarrow Grass's fear and tightly clenched hands, how could he not know that this was the hatred in Yarrow Grass's heart? However, he still restrained his temper and asked, Chow Chow, you don't have to be afraid. If he is the fake Jin Kong, I can kill him with my rake. If he really is Jin Kong, just nod your head. Chong Chow stared at Jin Kong. After a while, he nodded gently and hid his face in Chun Zhang's chest. Tears flowed from his eyes and the hatred in his eyes slowly turned into relief. Jin Kong's expression also relaxed. He looked at Xinjie and said, Eldest senior brother, you can rest assured now, right? Of course I can't rest assured. Xinjie raises its hoof and slaps down on Jin Kong's shoulder. Jin Kong doesn't even have time to dodge. Xinjie curses, I was just chasing after 3 Yao Kings and you caused me so much trouble. Can't you just let me be less worried? You actually let Tai Bai Jinxing of the Immortal Palace and Manjushri of the Thunder Temple come over. You really made me lose face. Go, why aren't you going to beg for alms for your master? Also, scout the path and see if there are any demons ahead. Yes, senior brother. Jin Kong smiled and said, I will go now. Then, Jin Kong said to Chunzong, Master, disciple got a peach for you last time. This time, disciple will get some pears for you. Then, without waiting for Chunzong to say anything, Jin Kong somersaulted on the cloud and quickly left. Sigh, people will grow up. After going through this calamity, Jin Kong finally understood. Amitabha Buddhism is boundless. Chunzong placed his palms together and bowed towards Nirvana. Then he said to Jinhan, pack up your things. We should be on our way. After being delayed for so long, it is time to find a good family for Xiao Chao. Yes, master. Jinhan nodded and took out her Buddhist staff to pack up the scriptures. Draconic horse Jin Feng smiled bitterly and walked in front of Xinjie. Then he obediently enlarged his body. And this is not bad. Xinjie's body swayed and lay down on Draconic horse Zhenfeng's back. He stretched his waist and said with a smile, Damn it, I didn't sleep well at the bottom of the sea. Then, Xinjie realized that he had misspoken and hurriedly said, Xiao Chao, come to me. You can't always let my master carry you. Then, Xinjie lifted Xiao Chao from the ground and placed him on Draconic horse's back. Draconic horse Zhenfeng was angry but did not dare to say anything. He only muttered, Damn it, I am the 10th prince of the Eastern Sea Dragon Palace. Chunzong looked at his disciples and unconsciously smiled. His footsteps became lighter and he walked in front of them with his Buddhist staff in hand. Cultivation and the heavenly Tao had no concept of time. Unknowingly, close to 50 years had passed. During these 50 years, many things had happened in the 3 continents. The grand event of the 1,000 Demons' sacred realm and the 7 sages becoming sworn brothers had become an old legend. The demon race had already replaced the previous 6 sages with the 7 sages. Every time the first sage was mentioned, they would be referring to the heaven-defying Thunder Phoenix and not the golden-winged Great Peng. However, what puzzled the demon race and surprised the human race was that the bloody storm they had expected did not appear. The heaven-defying Thunder Phoenix Great Sage did not force his way into the 1,000 Demons' sacred realm. He only took the 6 demon realms offered by the 6 sages in name and did not show up again. There was no fighting for benefits. The strength of the 1,000 Demons' sacred realm was not weakened. Naturally, the human race was extremely disappointed. The demon race also had different thoughts. Some felt that the heaven-defying Thunder Phoenix Great Sage was too weak and would not be able to survive in the Great Sage Hall for long. However, most of the demon race rejoiced and believed that the heaven-defying Thunder Phoenix Great Sage was the true first sage of the demon race. He deserved the title. The demon realms that did not belong to the 6 sages took the initiative to approach the heaven-defying Thunder Phoenix Great Sage's 6 demon realms. The first was naturally the Light Beast's Light Demon Realm. There were many more after that, but these demon realms were not big. Later on, the heaven-defying Thunder Phoenix Great Sage chose a demon realm that was neither too big nor too small as his own, combining it with the previous 6 demon realms and changing its name. This name was not out of the expectations of the 6 sages. They were called the Dubhe Demon Realm, the Heavenly Jade Demon Realm, the Fekta Demon Realm, the Migrez Demon Realm, the Alioth Demon Realm, the Mizar Demon Realm, and the Alcade Demon Realm. Of course, the demon race was still the demon race. Their bloodline was filled with competitiveness, and there was no such thing as modesty and courtesy. After the 7 great sages became sworn brothers, there was a rare period of peace. Then, when they saw their own strength increase, they had other thoughts, and the demon realm began to fight again. There were even some demon realms close to the hidden immortal continent that had plans to encroach on the human race. However, they did not dare to carry out these plans for the time being because there were faint rumors about the 3 demon realms in the sky concealing ridge. The heaven-defying Thunder Phoenix Great Sage had a very good relationship with the Taoist Grand Ascension stage of the human race. No one dared to take the first step and risk offending the first sage of the demon race. However, since there were rumors, there were naturally waves. 50 years was too short. Perhaps in another 50 years, these small waves would become a big wave. The 1,000 demons sacred realm of the demon race was prosperous and many things had happened. The hidden immortal continent and western paradise of the human race were not peaceful either. There were also many strange things that people talked about enthusiastically. However, among these things, there were a few that were the most famous. The first was that the literature palace of the Immortal Palace had a master. It was a literature star that no one had ever heard of before. His strength was close to a supreme realm. This literature star's name was even more eye-catching. He was directly called Wuxia. How many humans had there been since ancient times? How many sages and literature stars had there been? Who would dare to directly use the name of the literature star? However, this Wuxia was called Wuxia. Moreover, not only did the Confucian cultivators not have any objections, but even the Immortal Palace did not dare to say anything. This was because Wuxia had given the Immortal Palace the complete 5 Qis origin technique. This was the long-cherished wish of countless generations of Confucian cultivators. Finally, at this moment, they had gotten it. The Immortal Palace naturally returned the favor. They called Wuxia an immortal master and treated him with the respect of all Confucian cultivators in the world. At first, the 4 great clans were dissatisfied, and the 100 clans were resentful. Wuxia did not go to the Immortal Palace to enter the Hall of Literature and Music. Instead, he went to the summit of a nameless mountain to meet the scholars of the world and fight the Confucian generals of the various clans. After 10 years, he had never tasted defeat. The 4 clans did not say anything. After the Immortal Palace sent down an auspicious sign, they issued an imperial decree to call Wuxia an immortal master and welcome him to the Literature Palace. The place where Wuxia and the Confucian cultivators fought was called the Literature Peak by later generations. Many literati traveled thousands of miles to pay their respects. The appearance of the literature master was too sudden. Many people speculated about his identity, including the majority of the 4 clans. They believed that this was a chess piece that the Immortal Palace had planted long ago. The literature master was originally a disciple of the Sun clan. However, the Immortal Palace was at a disadvantage right now. Immortal Emperor Gaochen had no choice but to use this important chess piece against the other clans. Moreover, the Saint of all Saints had appeared in the 1,000 Demons sacred realm, and the Nanwu Methria Buddha had appeared in the Pure Land world. The Confucian cultivators of the hidden immortal continent were already at a disadvantage. The Immortal Palace had invited the master of the Literature Star Palace, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Of course, what made the disciples of the various clans the happiest was that since Wuxia was regarded as an immortal master, it meant that he was the master of all the Confucian cultivators in the world. The method of 5 Qis unification that he presented to the Immortal Palace was naturally the supreme scripture of all the Confucian cultivators in the world. It was no longer something that the Immortal Palace could monopolize. Both the 4 great clans and the 100 schools of thought could cultivate it. This was indeed extremely important for the development of the Confucian cultivators in the human race. 50 years was too short. The Confucian cultivators of the world were waiting for the 5 Qis origin technique to be announced gradually. Chapter 4578. Regarding one of the 3 continents, Nirvana, there were 2 major events, one happy and one sad. What made all the Buddhist sects in the world sad was that just as Layin Temple welcomed the arrival of Maitreya Buddha the world rebelled against Layin Temple. No one knew what had happened in the Layin Temple. The Maitreya Buddha and the world-honored one had actually brought nearly 40% of the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, and Arhats of the Layin Temple to open another Dao field in the Shaoling Long Temple of the Great Snow Mountain. Xiling Long Temple was just a small and shabby temple before. Most people didn't even know that there was such a small temple in the world. Now, Xiling Long Temple was famous again. Of course, Maitreya Buddha the world's place couldn't be Xiling Long Temple located in Snowy Mountain. Maitreya Buddha the world waved the wonderful tree of 7 treasures and used great Buddhist power to split open the void in Snowy Mountain. With the power of thousands of Buddhas and the faith of millions, he rebuilt a hall. Maitreya Buddha the world preached the essence of Buddhism in this hall every day. Although in the eyes of the Buddhas, hundreds of millions of Buddhist disciples had long divided Buddhism into 2 branches, one called Layin Temple and the other called Xiling Long Temple. In fact, the thousands of Buddhas in Xiling Long Temple understood that there was no plaque outside the hall where they cultivated. Samantabhadra Bodhisattva of Namo Buddhism had also asked Maitreya Buddha the world in person, but Maitreya Buddha the world only smiled and said, "I'm the future Buddha Lord, how can I snatch the incense of the current Buddha Lord? The cultivation of the philosophers is still in the future." Since then, the thousands of Buddhas in Xiling Long Temple didn't ask about this matter anymore. They only listened to the lectures every day and discussed the essence of Buddhism. The difference between Xiling Long Temple and Layin Temple was that Maitreya Buddha the world not only preached the essence of Buddhism that he had comprehended, but also led thousands of Buddhas to chant and discuss. Each Buddha and Bodhisattva could share their knowledge with the other Buddhas and discuss with each other. In Layin Temple, Maitreya Buddha the world preached by himself. The thousands of Buddhas only listened and didn't speak. Samantabhadra Bodhisattva of Namo Buddhism also had doubts. Maitreya Buddha the world laughed and said, "The connection between nirvana and the Buddhist kingdom is broken, so it's hard for us to determine the authenticity of what we have learned. The Mahavairakana world venerable might be one of the Buddha's avatars, but I haven't been in contact with him for a long time. Although we have different positions and different Buddha fruits, we are all disciples of Buddha. What we have learned may be a little different, but the overall trend is correct." Although Maitreya Buddha and the world-honored one didn't say anything more, the 1,000 Buddhas already understood. They all chanted the Buddha's name, Namo Maitreya Buddha. The Buddha's aura in the entire exquisite temple became even more exuberant. Although the Shaoling Temple had split up and all the Buddhas were mourning, there was no war in the Nirvana world. The Layin Temple and the Shaoling Temple did not have any confrontation. Rather than saying it was a sad matter, it was better to say it was a peaceful breakup. The other thing was a real happy event for the Buddhism sect. After a long and arduous journey and 50 years of hardship, Chunzong and his disciples finally entered Yu province from another route of the hidden Immortal continent. After more than 270 years, the sutra seeking in bliss finally came to an end. Tens of thousands of people were once again looking forward to the end of this grand event. The end of the sutra seeking in bliss was also the beginning of the Great Integration. From then on, the golden body of Namo Maitreya Buddha could be consecrated in the Jianghu ridge of the town of Immortals. The scriptures and doctrines of the Confucian cultivators could also be taught in the Nirvana world. The Immortal Palace and the Layin Temple could no longer interfere with the hidden Immortal continent and the Nirvana world on the surface. As for the sutra seeking in bliss after the coast of the East Sea, it did not go as smoothly as Jianghu expected. In addition to the abrupt appearance of the 2 demon kings of the 1,000 Demons sacred realm, there were also more and more Confucian cultivators who came out of nowhere. As a result, the Immortal Palace did not need to arrange any more tribulations. These troubles had already caused Jianghu, who had always been lazy, to complain incessantly. However, the Confucian cultivators of the human tribe had an advantage over the great demons of the demon tribe. Although they took action, they would never eat Chunzang's body as an elixir of immortality. They would never endanger Chunzang's life. At most, they would only threaten him. In the face of these threats, Chunzang only recited the sutra and treated them as nothing. The human tribe Confucian cultivators were helpless and could only vent their anger on Chunzang's disciple. Zhen Han was a member of the Immortal Palace, so the Confucian cultivators would not make things difficult for him. Dragon horse Zhen Feng was from the East Sea Dragon Palace. Although the Confucian cultivators wanted to deal with him, he kept saying that he was the 10th prince of the East Sea Dragon Palace. The Confucian cultivators could only believe him and not believe him. As for Zhenjie, his strength was close to the 9th level of origin energy. Even the sage of literature was not his match, let alone an angry martial grandmaster. Therefore, the most unlucky one was Zhen Kong. After Zhen Kong experienced the real and fake Zhen Kong, Chunzang saw a huge change in him. Of course, this change happened slowly and without arousing Chunzang's suspicions. He still faced these difficulties with the devil wand. When the devil wand did not work, he would still recite the sutra mantra and calmly face them. He was like an eminent demon race monk who had been baptized by Buddhist light. Although most of the Confucian cultivators were no match for Zhenjie, the Confucian cultivators' methods were endless. They were tens of thousands of times more powerful than the demon race. In the past 50 years, even someone as strong as Zhenjie had to suffer. He had to lie on dragon horse Zhenfeng's back every day and groaned in torment. Damn it, when will these days end? These were the grand events that people were familiar with. However, there were many undercurrents that were not known to the public. One of them was the Fortune Gate in the soaring Dragon Mountain Range in the Yu province. When the Confucian, Buddhist, and demon race were at their peak, the Taoist sect was also rapidly rising. Royal Highness Lan led hundreds of thousands of Taoist sect's troops to step into the Thousand Demons sacred realm and annihilate a demon realm expert. After killing many greater demons, he crossed the northern and eastern seas and returned to the soaring Dragon Mountain Range in a high-profile manner. From then on, the Fortune Gate openly appeared in the hidden Immortal continent and no longer feared anything. After the Immortal Palace's Lunar Temple's expedition to the soaring Dragon Mountain Range was defeated, they did not send any more troops to annihilate the Fortune Gate. Maybe because 50 years was too short, the Immortal Palace did not have time to send troops, or maybe Immortal Emperor Gaochen had other plans. However, after the Fortune Gate's disciples cleared the mysterious Yellow List, the mysterious Yellow Order's experts began to surround the soaring Dragon Mountain Range. However, the mysterious Yellow Order's encirclement was different from the Immortal Palace's. They did not organize a large-scale battle, but instead sent out hunting experts to kill the Fortune Gate's disciples. Naturally, the Fortune Gate was not to be outdone. They also sent out disciples to hunt down the mysterious Yellow Order's experts. There were many battles between the two sides, and both sides had their own victories and losses. In the end, the mysterious Yellow Order's experts were angered and sent out an 8th-grade Origin Force literature saint to hunt down the Taoist sect's disciples. The first person to encounter this literature saint was Wang Bianfei. Even someone as strong as Wang Bianfei was almost killed by this literature saint. Wang Bianfei was shocked and fled into the soaring Dragon Mountain Range with injuries. That literature saint did not give up. Not only did he attack the soaring Dragon Mountain Range, but he also invited his close friends to attack the capital star formation. Moreover, he even arrogantly challenged Taoist Xiao. At this time, the soaring Dragon Mountain Range was different from when Li Xiang and the others were at the Fortune Gate. Among the Fortune Gate's disciples, not only were there Taoist sect's experts at 7th grade Origin Force, but there were also formation masters. Under the protection of these disciples, the literature saints were not able to break through the formation. Just as the mysterious Yellow Order's experts were about to mobilize more Confucian disciples and plead with the Immortal Palace to send troops to annihilate the Fortune Gate, the mysterious Yellow Order's nightmare began. It was dusk, and a group of literature saints were about to join forces to attack the soaring Dragon Mountain Range's grand defensive formation. Rumble. From the south of the soaring Dragon Mountain range, endless lightning bolts filled the sky, and when they reached the vicinity of the soaring Dragon Mountain range, it was like a heavenly river had suddenly burst out. Tens of thousands of lightning bolts fell like a lightning tribulation, surrounding the entire soaring Dragon Mountain range. The group of literature saints was shocked, and they thought that Xiaohua had returned. They desperately resisted and tried to escape. Unfortunately, the several thousand li radius of the soaring Dragon Mountain range was sealed by lightning. No matter how hard these literature saints struggled, they could not escape. Of the 40-plus literature saints with 8th grade origin force cultivation, 23 were killed by the lightning bolts, and the rest were seriously injured. As a 10,000 zhang tall lightning giant appeared in the sky, the surviving literature saints finally understood that the one who had returned was not Taoist Xiao, but the lightning Taoist. Since the lightning Taoist had returned, Wang Bianfei and the others led their troops to kill. Not only did they kill the remaining 20-plus literature saints, but they also killed the several 100,000 mysterious Yellow Order's subordinates who had besieged the soaring Dragon Mountain range. This battle dyed the soaring Dragon Mountain range red with blood. From then on, the mysterious Yellow Order's subordinates no longer dared to say anything about besieging the soaring Dragon Mountain range and exterminating the Fortune Gate's disciples. On the contrary, the Fortune Gate's disciples relied on the news from the Endless Merchant Union to launch counterattacks against the mysterious Yellow Order's subordinates. The 4 aristocratic families were all scholars, and seeing the Fortune Gate's strength, they wanted to deal with the Lightning Taoist. However, the Lightning Taoist was different from the Grand Mist ancestor. Not only was the Lightning Taoist's Grand Ascension Stage Origin Force cultivation at 9th grade Origin Force, but he also had several 100,000 high-grade disciples under him. None of the aristocratic families dared to say that they could win in a single battle. However, if the 100 schools of Confucian cultivators surrounded and defeated him, they would lack a commander. The Immortal Palace was raising the banner of the Immortal Master and taking back the advantage of the 100 schools of philosophers. Other than the 4 aristocratic families, no one else was qualified to put themselves under the Fortune Gate's tiger's mouth. As for the 4 aristocratic families, they seemed to know some secrets and were not too keen on exterminating the Fortune Gate. The Confucian cultivators were already like this, not to mention the Immortals, Buddhists, and demons joining forces to exterminate the Fortune Gate. The Buddhist sect had Maitreya Buddha leading the exquisite temple. The demon race had the first great saint of the Great Sage Temple. The literature palace had Wuxia, who was regarded as the teacher of Confucian cultivators, and the dragon race had Taoist Yun, who was regarded as the dragon master and taught Dragon Island's small elder Ao Sheng. In this world, who had the qualifications, courage, and strength to exterminate the Fortune Gate in the soaring Dragon Mountain range? Who dared to compete with Xiaohua and Xiaohua? 50 years was a short time, not to mention there was no time in the Star Moon Palace. Inside the Star Moon Palace, on top of the pavilion, Xiaohua and his doppelgangers were meditating with their eyes closed. No one knew about the drastic changes that had taken place in the 3 continents. However, in the end, a thunderous rumble could be heard. Children of gods, 81 rounds of discussion have come to an end. We shall meet again in the future if fate allows it. The Xianhong River was known as a mysterious river in the chaotic divine realm, and the gods could not know its profound meaning. We will lead the children of gods to travel the various worlds, observe space, experience Xianhong, sense time, discuss Tao and become wise, listen quietly and discern clearly. We hope that the children of gods can make progress after leaving, condense their godhead, obtain the godhood, and pry into the divine realm.